This bear-like man had bulging muscles that seemed to possess explosive strength. He allowed his hair to just fall randomly, making him look like a savage. A berserk aura came from him that made Long Chen's heart pound. This feeling was something he had only sensed before from Hua Wufang. But this person's aura was 10 times stronger than Hua Wufang's. Hua Wufang was only able to become a rank 2 celestial because of some transplanted bones. Although he could be said to have 80% of a rank 2 celestial strength, how could strength be described that way? That strength was fundamentally not his own. It would be impressive if he could even release half of it. As for this man, he gave Long Chen a powerful pressure. He was the strongest opponent he had met so far. Heavens, it's Zhao Wuji! From the crowd, someone let out a startled cry. This person was someone only a few people in the Shantian Dao sect didn't know. That was because he had a nickname, Tyrant. Tyrant Zhao Wuji. As for why he had this nickname, one reason was because his temperament was so explosive, while the other was because his methods were so cruel. He had killed countless people. Most importantly, he had the strength to back it up. He had once torn a rank 2 celestial in half with his bare hands in one of the righteous and corrupt battles. That was what had earned him the name Tyrant. From the muttering, Long Chen learned that this person was extremely powerful. But Long Chen still felt no fear. Could it be that, if I don't leave, someone will treat me to a meal? Do you know who you're talking to? Before Zhao Wuji could even speak, one of the celestials behind him sneered. Zhao Wuji waved his hand, cutting him off. You are Long Chen? Correct. So you're still alive. But whether you're alive or dead doesn't matter to me. Let me tell you, those 2 beauties of the 36th super monastery are mine. It'd be best for you to scram, said Zhao Wuji threateningly. 2 beauties? Long Chen was startled. That should be referring to Tang Wan'er and Meng Qi. Thinking of that, his fury immediately soared. This bastard wanted to snatch his women? Fuck off. What shocked everyone was that Long Chen didn't hesitate in the slightest. He directly sent a face slap at Zhao Wuji. This face slap was extremely resounding, so resounding that it shook people's ears. Some of the weaker disciples actually began to bleed from their ears. But Long Chen was also shocked. Zhao Wuji wasn't sent flying by his slap. All his slap did was make him stagger back. Furthermore, his own hand hurt. Zhao Wuji had never imagined that there would be someone in this world who dared to slap him. He was at first stunned, and then with a furious roar, he smashed his fist at Long Chen. Boom! Long Chen didn't dare be careless. Circulating his full strength, he met the attack with his own fist. A terrifying shockwave erupted, and the surrounding people were all sent flying. Long Chen felt a burst of pain from his wrist. At this time, he saw a yellow, earthen light over Zhao Wuji's fist. This was Long Chen's first time being suppressed in terms of physical strength. However, Zhao Wuji was also startled. Let alone ordinary celestials, even amongst rank 2 celestials, he had never encountered someone who dared to compete with him in terms of physical bodies. He also felt a burst of pain from his wrist, as if it was about to break. With a furious roar, a dirt yellow rune lit up on his fist, and he once more punched at Long Chen. This fist caused heaven and earth to rumble. Long Chen could sense endless energy surging into Zhao Wuji from the ground. This was his first time encountering such a strange situation. But he had no time to think about it. Zhao Wuji's fist had already arrived. Endless thunder force suddenly appeared over his hand as he met his fist. Boom! This exchange was even more vicious than the last. The entire plaza rocked as berserk energy caused the incomparably sturdy ground to crack. This horrified everyone. Zhao Wuji was ranked number 1 in terms of brute strength in the Shantian Dao sect. He had never lost to anyone in the same realm in terms of strength. Who knew how many years it had been? Zhao Wuji's fame had been earned entirely through his 2 fists. He was practically unrivaled. But this seemingly weak and almost scholarly Long Chen was actually able to fight on an even level with him in terms of physical power. They found this to be inconceivable. One was a huge figure while one was a slim figure. This disproportionate scene was extremely shocking. Boom! Neither of them was able to suppress the other, and they both shot back. "Brat, you have some skills. But with just this little power, don't even think about defeating me," said Zhao Wuji. Space suddenly trembled and endless runes condensed around him. These runes were split into two kinds. As expected, he truly was a rank 2 celestial. "Eat one of my fists," Zhao Wuji roared. He suddenly soared into the sky and then leaped down on Long Chun. Seeing that Zhao Wuji had summoned his cry of the heavenly daos, Long Chun snorted. He was just about to summon his divine ring. "Stop!" But a cold shout caused Long Chen's expression to change. He found that the space around him had solidified, and he was unable to move. As for Zhao Wuji, he was in an even worse position than Long Chun was. He was still in midair and in the same attacking posture. It was extremely comical. Long Chun was shocked. What kind of power was this? He was unable to release the slightest bit of his strength. If this person wanted to kill him, wouldn't it be as easy as turning a hand? Was this the power of the ancestor level? Long Chun suddenly thought of the Tower Ancestor. Although the Tower Ancestor had been very benevolent and amicable, he knew he was a terrifying existence. Perhaps only an ancestor-level expert would be this terrifying. In front of this power, he was just like an ant. Suddenly, the restrictive force disappeared and Long Chun recovered his freedom. He hastily looked in the direction of that voice. Two people had come. One was a white-haired man with a dignified face. The other was a beautiful woman. Monastery head. Long Chun couldn't help crying out. Seeing Shui Wuhan now was truly great. As for Shui Wuhan, she was delighted to see him, but she immediately suppressed that emotion and rebuked. "If you were alive, why didn't you get back here sooner? Do you know how worried we were for you?" Of course, she had long since known he was alive. She was just saying this to conceal that fact, as if she had had no idea he had been alive. After all, because Long Chen had died back then, the Zhou family had been forced to compensate them with a great deal of resources. Shui Wuhan had spent all those resources on the Dragon Blood Legion. It was also because of this that she had drawn the ire of her family. They had thought this compensation would be used for the entire Shui family, as the compensation they had paid was no small amount. But Shui Wuhan had ignored her family's wishes and focused completely on raising the Dragon Blood Legion. It was precisely for this reason that she had drawn her family's anger. And so when the 36th super monastery was suppressed, the Shui family didn't do anything. They were using this method to pressure Shui Wuhan into apologizing to the family. After all, she was a late sea expansion expert, one of the pillars of the entire family. They couldn't go too far against her. And yet, Shui Wuhan refused to lower her head. She didn't say a single word of apology, infuriating her family head. He had warned everyone not to help her. He wanted to see just how far she planned on enduring. "He is the Long Chun you mentioned?" asked the elder. His gaze was electric, seeming to see right through Long Chun. "Good. He's still in time to attend. Add his name to the registration." "Many thanks, Vice Sect Master," thanked Shui Wuhan. Long Chun, hurry and thank the Vice Sect Master. In truth, you're already late. If it weren't for the Vice Sect Master's words just now, you'd have lost the qualifications to attend. "Many thanks, Vice Sect Master." Long Chun didn't know what was going on, but since Shui Wuhan ordered him, he hastily thanked him. The Vice Sect Master nodded. All of a sudden, he icily said, "You two really were brazen. Do you not know it is not permitted to fight here?" Long Chun was startled. This Vice Sect Master had turned hostile out of the blue. To tell the truth, his face was not very friendly looking. So as soon as his expression darkened, it was truly a bit frightening. "Vice Sect Master, it's Long Chun who went too far." Seeing Long Chun keeping his mouth tightly shut, Zhao Wuji could only try to explain. "Shut up. I don't care about your excuses. To fight right in front of the ancestor statue is a blasphemy to the founder," shouted the Vice Sect Master. He didn't give him any chance to explain. Long Chun was laughing inside. Zhao Wuji was truly an idiot. He couldn't even tell what kind of temperament this Vice Sect Master had. Did he think he was someone who would find justice for him? It was precisely because he had seen through what kind of character the vice sect master possessed that Long Chun had kept his mouth shut. But as expected, this idiot Zhao Wuji didn't understand that. Seeing Long Chun rolling his eyes, Shui Wuhan couldn't help sighing. When it came to slyness, perhaps there weren't that many people who could exceed Long Chun. Zhao Wuji ended up taking quite the blow. She had previously gone to find the vice sect master just to keep the registration open for Long Chun. The actual registration had already ended. They would be moving out for the trial region tomorrow, and the trial was to begin 3 days from now. Back in the super monastery, she had constantly been paying attention to news from the Pill Tower. She knew that Long Chun had taken first place at the Pill Emperor competition. Theoretically, he should have quickly returned. But he still didn't return after all that time, and once she had brought everyone to the Shintian Dao sect, she had lost her connection to the outside world's news. She could only try stalling for time with the vice sect master. Today was the day they were to completely set the quotas. If Long Chun still hadn't come, he wouldn't be able to attend the trial. Shui Wuhan had been in the midst of coaxing the vice sect master when the two of them had felt the fluctuations of a battle. As a result, they had arrived just in time to stop this battle. Since the trial is about to start, I won't give you much punishment. The two of you must repair all the bricks here perfectly, or don't even think about attending the trial. And if anyone helps, you'll all lose your qualifications, ordered the vice sect master. Just like that, he turned and left. Long Chun had just been laughing inside, but now he was stunned. The vice sect master wanted him to be a bricklayer? How was he supposed to know how to do that? Long Chun, I really have to admire you. When it comes to causing trouble, no one beneath the heavens can compare to you. You've just arrived at the Shintian Dao sect, but you've already brought trouble for yourself. Truly competent. Shui Wuhan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Long Chun had never been a peaceful person. After causing all that trouble for the Pill Tower, he had come here to cause trouble. Did he not get tired? Monastery head, I really can't agree with what you just said. How did I provoke trouble? It was others who came to bully me, and I was simply forced to counterattack. Do you think I'm someone who intentionally provokes dogs into attacking me? Long Chun spread his arms, seeming wronged. Who are you saying is the dog? Raged Zhao Wuji. It's not like I said it was you. Furthermore, in this world, what dog looks as bear-like as you? Long Chun shook his head. You! Zhao Wuji almost went berserk and attacked. Come at me. Just now, we didn't have a chance to determine the winner. Since you dare to place your sights on my women, you really must not care about your life. Long Chun narrowed his eyes and took a battle posture. He wanted to know just how terrifying a true rank 2 celestial was. Furthermore, this idiot dared to place his sights on Meng Qi and Tang Wan. That was the greatest provocation to Long Chun. As long as he dared to attack, Long Chun would accompany him. Long Chun, don't make a fuss. If you two continue like this, you'll both be imprisoned and lose your right to participate in the trial. Seeing Long Chun like this, Shui Wuhan jumped in fright. With her understanding of Long Chun, she knew that there was nothing he didn't dare to do. As for Zhao Wuji, he was the very definition of an explosive person. He never thought about the consequences of his actions, so it was all too possible for them to fight. I don't care about the trial. Zhao Bear. If you have the guts, then let's continue our fight. Long Chun was undaunted, cursing right at Zhao Wuji. Everyone was startled. This Long Chun was practically a demon. Was he afraid his previous actions hadn't infuriated Zhao Wuji enough? As expected, Zhao Wuji was enraged. His hair stood on end, making him look just like a furious lion. His eyes almost seemed to spit flames. But everyone was surprised to see that the incomparably explosive Zhao Wuji decided to swallow his anger in the end. Long Chun, at the trial, I will definitely crush you. After saying that, Zhao Wuji ordered someone to get new bricks from the storeroom, while he knelt and began to pick up the broken pieces. He intentionally left Long Chun with half the space to clean. Since the two of them had been punished together, it was naturally split half and half. TCH, I can't be bothered to deal with you. Well, you can busy yourself here. I'll be leaving. Long Chun turned to leave. Bastard, if you don't finish your half, you'll be imprisoned and lose your right to participate in the trial. Do you want to run like this, you coward? Roared Zhao Wuji. He thought Long Chun was running so that he couldn't do anything to him. Idiot! Did you not hear the vice sect master? He's punishing the two of us together. Let me repeat what he said for you. The two of you must repair all the bricks here perfectly, or don't even think about attending the trial. Are you deaf? In case you still don't understand, let me explain it even clearer for you. If these bricks aren't tidied up perfectly, neither of us will be able to attend the trial. As for me, I never had any intentions of attending. So if you want to attend, you understand. Long Chun laughed as he left with Shui Wuhan and the two Dragonblood warriors. Fuck. 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 Zhao Wuji was about to go crazy. He threw the brick in his hand to the ground in his fit of anger. The thunderous sound revealed just how furious he was. Shui Wuhan was bitterly holding back a smile. Long Chun was too evil to give Zhao Wuji all the work. As for Zhao Wuji, he really did have no choice but to do it, and he also couldn't have other people help him. A rank 2 celestial and unrivaled existence here was forced to be a bricklayer. Shui Wuhan was practically unable to believe it. They returned to the 36th Supermonasteries region. This was a huge palace, and although it was just a temporary residence, it was still extremely grand. Boss has returned. As soon as they entered, a familiar cry rang out. Guoran was the first to sense Long Chen's arrival. This large hall was filled with many people calmly cultivating. But that peace was immediately broken. The Dragonblood warriors were especially emotional, and all their eyes turned red. Long Chun was a god in their hearts, someone they practically worshipped. They were unable to hold back their excitement upon seeing him again. Ha ha ha, brothers, tonight. None of us will go home until we're drunk. Wait, that's wrong, this place is home. So we'll drink until we collapse, laughed Long Chun. Seeing these familiar faces, sensing the kind of trust between brothers, Long Chun felt a warm feeling well up within him. After experiencing the betrayal of Fang Mingyuan and Chai Gaoyang, this kind of trust and feeling could heal the wound in his heart. Although he might be a powerful expert, an undefeatable war god in other people's hearts, he had his weaknesses. And his greatest weakness was being betrayed by people he trusted. That kind of pain was something that could only be understood through experience. Boss, we missed you. Guoran gave Long Chun a fierce hug. His eyes were red. This time they had truly been parted for a long time. Not to mention that Long Chun had been stalling so many powerful enemies the last time they had seen him. They had even thought that they might not see him again. Felt like a lifetime had passed. Haha, you were overthinking things. Who do you think I, Long Chun, am? Even the heavens can't put me away, laughed Long Chun. He had a fierce hug one by one with Gu Yang, Li Qi, Yu Zifeng, and Song Mingyuan. Song Mingyuan and Fang Mingyuan had the same name. Most likely, the person who had come up with their name hoped for them to have a far-reaching vision and foresight. But Fang Mingyuan had still been blinded by his greed and lost that foresight. He had ended up losing his life from that. Just thinking about it made a person lament. Has Wild still not returned? Long Chen asked suddenly. For now, there's still no news from him or his master. Shui Wuhan shook her head. Long Chen's heart shook. He hoped nothing had happened to them. But then thinking about it, the two had only gone hunting. It didn't seem likely for something to happen. However, the fact that they hadn't returned after all this time was a bit worrying. Long Chun. Suddenly, a disbelieving cry rang out. Long Chun hastily turned back. Before he could see anything, a burst of fragrance enveloped him, and a maiden tightly held him. Long Chun, you giant scoundrel. How could you only return now? Tang Waner was in Long Chen's embrace, her face stained with tears. After being teleported out of the Chaos region, she had always been worried. When Shui Wuhan had led an army over, each hour had felt as long as a year to her. That kind of bitter torment was something outsiders couldn't comprehend. But when Shui Wuhan had returned, she had refused to see her. That had made her heart sink to an all-time low. It was a good thing that Long Chen's letter had arrived quickly. That letter had been marked with his specific spiritual mark, and it could not be faked. Her worried heart had finally managed to get a rest. Girl, did you miss me? But even if you want to hug me, you should find a place with no one else present to do it. There are so many single people watching. Your actions are giving them a blow big enough to kill them, laughed Long Chun. Tang Wanner immediately turned red and gave Long Chun a vicious pinch. She turned, not daring to look at the others. It's fine, it's fine. As single people, we can take this chance to observe and learn. We have to learn a little bit of everything from Boss Long Chun. Guoran also laughed wickedly. That wretched expression was also quite similar to Long Chen's. Shui Wuhan was speechless. The people that Long Chun led were definitely not good. They were a bunch of hooligans like him. Dear Meng Qi, come. Give your husband a hug. Long Chun pulled Meng Qi into his embrace. Meng Qi had just been standing to the side without saying anything, but her eyes were already wet. Her temperament was the exact opposite of Tang Wanner's. One was outspoken and forthright, while the other was elegant and subdued. Tang Wanner said whatever she wanted. She was unable to keep any secrets. But Meng Qi was like water, and she wouldn't easily display her emotions. Now that Long Chun pulled her into his embrace, she couldn't hold back any longer and her tears began to drip down. Long Chen's embrace felt so warm and comforting to her. Her arms pulled against Long Chen's waist as she sobbed. Sorry, I've caused you to worry. Long Chun was a bit ashamed, but he also felt helpless. Meng Qi shook her head. She raised it and saw that Long Chen's expression was the same, but he could not conceal the weariness coming from deep within him. Long Chun, you're the one who has it hard. In order to keep us safe, you suffer so much. But you conceal that suffering from us. We are always in your heart, but we are powerless to share your burden, said Meng Qi. This time, the Dragonblood warriors couldn't help but turn silent. They had always treated Long Chun as an idol they worshipped. He was an undefeatable legend, an unrivaled commander. But they had forgotten that Long Chun was even a bit younger than them. He was also human and he also had times of weakness. It was just that Long Chun only showed them his strongest, bravest side. In battle, he always took on the most dangerous fight. Now that Meng Qi said this, everyone's hearts became emotional. Long Chun had paid so much for them, but they were only able to help him so little. Long Chun also felt his emotions well up, and his tears almost fell. Truly was Meng Qi who understood him the best. It's fine, everything's over now. Now that we've reunited, we should be happy. Long Chun did his best to steady his emotions. Smiling, he wiped away Meng Qi's tears. Even tear-stained, Meng Qi's beauty was still absolutely incomparable. It was like crystal drops sprinkled over jade. It's no wonder that Zhao Bear wants to take my wife. If others also had such a beautiful wife, I would also want to snatch them. Long Chen's sudden joke caused everyone to laugh. Even Meng Qi and Tang Wanner couldn't help laughing. Alright, it was difficult for everyone to gather again. I've already sent people to prepare the food. We can talk as we feast. I'll give you an explanation of what will be happening during this martial gathering. Shui Wuhan's solemn words caused everyone's ears to perk up. At this moment, Shui Wuhan's expression was solemn. This martial gathering hosted by the Shen Dao sect is different from the past. In the past, it was just a trial and experience for disciples. But this time, it has coincided with the opening of the immemorial pathway. So it has an added purpose to fight for quotas. Immemorial pathway? Asked Long Chun. The immemorial pathway, Shui Wuhan sighed. 1,000 years ago, I was also just like you. I also chanced upon the opening of the immemorial pathway, but at that time, Shui Wuhan suddenly went silent. A trace of fear appeared in her eyes. It was obvious just how terrifying that immemorial pathway had been for her. She sighed, brushing off those miserable memories. It's best to just talk about the trial for now. But before that, let me first give you a brief explanation about the structure of the Shen Dao sect. Although the Shen Dao sect I'm talking about is just the branch sect, it has tens of millions of elite cultivators. As for the people who can attend the martial gathering this time, They are elites amongst elites. Our 36th supermonastery is the weakest existence of all the supermonasteries. When she reached there, Shui Wuhan became a bit embarrassed. Long Chun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The monastery I was at was also the weakest existence. Now the supermonastery is also the weakest existence. Don't tell me that the branch sect we're at is also the weakest amongst the branch sections. My luck can't be that bad, right? Shui Wuhan looked at Long Chun. She didn't say anything for a long time. Really? This branch sect is also the weakest. Long Chun was speechless. How was it possible to have such bad luck? Cough, but even so, our Shintian Dao sect is still one of the overlords of the Eastern Wasteland. As you've seen, almost 100,000 people are attending the trial this time from the 36 supermonasteries. As for our 36th supermonastery, we have less than 500 people. Shui Wuhan became even more embarrassed. Out of these 500 people, the Dragonblood Legion occupied 360 members. That was because the trial's criteria required that the disciple had to reach the Xiantian realm and was not older than 50. 99% of the disciples were washed out by these requirements. If it weren't for the Dragonblood Legion, Shui Wuhan would have been too embarrassed to even come here to attend the trial. That was because the other supermonasteries all had over 1,000 elites who could attend, or even several thousand. When the 36th supermonastery was compared to them, they truly were weaker. And if they didn't have Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er who were celestials, then they truly would have been turned into the Shintian Dao sect's laughingstock. But now that a monster like Long Chun had returned, the 36th supermonastery's position had immediately risen. Let's not talk about those elite Xiantian disciples. Just in terms of celestials, there are 33 experts, and amongst them are the 4 heavenly geniuses and 3 peerless beauties. At this point, Shui Wuhan smiled slightly. As for Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er, they blushed. Long Chun immediately understood that the two of them were within the so-called 3 peerless beauties. When it came to looks, Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er were definitely beauties that could bring about the downfall of a state. With their exceptional beauty, it was very normal for them to be in that ranking. Could it be that there is someone else that can compare to my 2 wives? Impossible. Long Chun was a bit surprised. Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er blushed even further. Tang Wan'er gave Long Chun a pinch, but Long Chun's skin was too tough, and she felt like she was trying to pinch dragonhide. She was unable to use the slightest force. But Long Chun's words were still praising their beauty, and they both liked that. What women didn't like such words? Even confident women would be delighted upon being praised. As soon as someone mentions a beautiful woman, your tail immediately pricks up. Are you not interested in the 4 heavenly geniuses? Shui Wuhan rolled her eyes at Long Chun. This little fellow never paid attention to the important details. Cough, nothing like that. I was just curious. Long Chun explained hastily, but he grumbled inside. Sister, why must you intentionally frame me? As expected, Tang Wan'er, Meng Qi, the Dragonblood warriors, and even the elite disciples from the other monasteries looked at Long Chun with a strange gaze. Boss, you've already taken 2 of the 3 beauties. You're just lacking 1 for a complete set. Aya! Guoran was suddenly sent flying by a burst of wind. He tumbled back and collided against a wall. His head was stuck in the ground as his butt was raised toward the sky. He was stuck in an exceedingly sorry and comical position which caused a burst of laughter. Guoran, do you think you're too big for a beating? Raged Tang Wan'er. Currently, she was a true celestial, and she was even a powerful existence amongst celestials. Guoran was unlucky. As with Long Chun present, he had forgotten something. He had forgotten that even Long Chun wouldn't fight with Tang Wan'er. Little Snow had been released at this time, and he had simply been laying there without saying a word. Now he suddenly let out a growl. Ha ha! Even Little Snow says he deserves it, laughed Meng Qi. She was the only one here other than Long Chun who could understand Little Snow's spiritual fluctuations. Fine, I was wrong. Guoran crawled up from the ground dejectedly. Now he had gotten smarter, and he hid behind Long Chun. Now, on the off chance he said something wrong again, Long Chun would become his shield. All right, let's get back to the topic. The three peerless beauties is something the Shen Dao sect's disciples came up with. Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er are two of them. As for the last woman, she's not just one of the three beauties. She's also one of the four heavenly geniuses, said Shui Wuhan. Long Chun was startled. Then is she? Shui Wuhan nodded. Yes, she is also a rank 2 celestial. She is extremely powerful, and she is definitely no weaker than the other heavenly geniuses. That's because she has inherited king blood. Inherited king blood? What does that mean? Asked Long Chun. Above sea expansion is foundation forging. That is the ancestor level. Experts above the ancestor level are nicknamed kings. They are the absolute rulers of the eastern wastelands and the other three outer regions. They can disdainfully look down on anyone else. With a wave of their hands, mountains collapse and seas overturn. They are completely unrivaled existences. Shui Wuhan couldn't help sighing, a touch of worship appearing in her eyes. Wouldn't such a person be on the same level as a god or immortal? How could such a person exist? Asked Tang Wan'er. In truth, you've also seen such a person. Shui Wuhan smiled. We have? How is that possible? The others haven't seen them, but those from the first monastery have. That's especially true of the Dragonblood warriors, said Shui Wuhan. Then you're talking about the woman who took away Yijiqiu? Asked Long Chen. Correct. If my guess isn't wrong, she should be a king, said Shui Wuhan. Long Chen was surprised. He fell back into his memories. At that time, that woman had stood in the air without any wings. In fact, there had been no fluctuations around her at all. Just like that, she stood in midair. So she was actually such a terrifying existence. Thinking of how he had actually taken a battle posture against her when she had taken Yijiqiu, he began to sweat. Most likely, she could have killed them all with just a sigh. Then that means Sister Jiqiu definitely has been revived, cried Tang Wan'er excitedly. With such a terrifying figure protecting her, Yijiqiu couldn't possibly have died. That's why you have to be careful, Long Chun. For a powerful king to personally raise her, Yijiqiu's cultivation base will definitely reach an incomparably terrifying level. You might get thrown behind by her, laughed Shui Wuhan. But then she clapped herself in the head. What's going on today? How are we always getting sidetracked? Back to the main subject. The third beauty's name is Zhongwuyan. She comes from an exceedingly old ancient family. Although her family has already declined, in her generation, there are signs of her ancestral blood being awakened. If she doesn't die, she has a 10% chance of becoming a king, sighed Shui Wuhan. Just 10%? Long Chun was slightly speechless. Shui Wuhan finally couldn't bear it anymore and gave him a disdainful gaze. Do you think kings are cabbages? Out of 10,000 ancestor experts, maybe not a single one will be able to become a king. Becoming a king not only requires talent and perseverance, but it also requires luck. Ah, then I'm doomed. With my luck, there's no chance for me at all, sighed Long Chen. From this explanation, he knew kings were blessed by heaven and earth. Long Chen had never received such a blessing. All right, we've gotten sidetracked again. Don't interrupt me again, or this will never end, said Shui Wuhan. If this continued, who knew what topic they would end up on? It was always Long Chen who disrupted her flow. Zhongwuyan possesses a king bloodline, and she is also a rank 2 celestial. Her combat abilities are incredible. She comes from the second supermonastery, which is controlled by the Wang family. The Shen Dao sect's 4 families are the Shui, Zhou, Wang, and Chu families. The Wang and Chu family's relationship with my Shui family isn't bad. They won't intentionally make things hard for us, so you don't need to be worried about that. The next heavenly genius is Yu Qianshan. He is also a rank 2 celestial and is also exceedingly powerful. When he fights with others, his attacks are always killing blows. That's because he is a sword cultivator. A sword cultivator. Yu Zifeng narrowed his eyes. He was also a sword cultivator, and he wanted to have a look at that terrifying fellow's abilities. Sword cultivators were acclaimed as possessing the top offensive ability. Their killing blows were incomparably sharp, and each exchange could determine life and death. They were extremely terrifying. Yu Qianshan comes from the first supermonastery, which is controlled by the Chu family. According to reason, he won't have any conflicts with us. But sword cultivators are known to be extremely prideful and eccentric. You should pay attention not to provoke him. As for the third person, Long Chen, you've already encountered him, and you've even exchanged blows. He is Zhao Wuji. He comes from the fourth supermonastery, controlled by the Zhou family. That's why he would intentionally target us. He is a rank 2 celestial, and he controls the great Earth's energy. His energy is boundless, and his physical body is terrifying. He has never met a match in terms of physical strength, said Shui Wuhan. Long Chen nodded. It was no wonder he was so powerful. He not only had the power of his physical body, but he also borrowed the energy of the earth. And there's another celestial? Asked Long Chen. Yes, he comes from my Shui family. A complicated expression appeared on Shui Wuhan's face. When she mentioned the Shui family's heavenly genius, Shui Wuhan's expression became a bit unnatural. It was only after she explained that everyone came to comprehend why. In truth, the Shui family's inner organization was rather complicated. Other than the head of the family, there were 3 late-sea expansion experts, and Shui Wuhan was one of them. The future family head was supposed to arise from these 3 people. But Shui Wuhan had no interest in becoming the family head. As for the other 2, their power spheres were extremely large and they fought intensely. Both of them had tried to pull Shui Wuhan to their side. But Shui Wuhan loathed that kind of struggle. She decided to separate herself from the Shui family, distancing herself from their struggle. She went to the 36th supermonastery and quietly acted as a monastery head. She hadn't expected that leaving would end up offending both sides. Now, one of them had finally become the winner. That was because a rank 2 celestial had been born amongst his descendants. That was a form of absolute power, and the struggle was immediately settled. As for Shui Wuhan, because she had refused to join hands with him, she was constantly rejected during these few years. This was a reprimand as well as a display of power. As for the current family head, he had long since viewed this as normal. If a family wanted to flourish, then at times when there was no outer battle, inner battles were a way to increase strength. Of course, that was on the precondition that the leader controlled the scope of the inner struggle properly and didn't let it overturn the entire boat. So those who could manage the position of the family head were all wily old foxes. Only such people could keep control of the overall situation and allow the family to steadily advance. Whether inner struggle would benefit the family was all up to the family head. How much it would benefit would be up to their control. It was a reflection of their wisdom. This was the essence left behind by generation after generation of the righteous path. Practically all large families were the same. This was for the continued inheritance and prosperity of the family. Of course, some people felt this manner was inappropriate. The slightest mistake might cause the entire family to fracture. But they were also unable to find a better method. Large families were like this and sects were also like this. The inner competition was for the sake of development and raising total combat strength. That person is called Shui Guanji. He is also a rank 2 celestial and he controls the water element. His combat abilities are strange, and he definitely isn't lacking compared to the other heavenly geniuses, said Shui Wuhan. Shui Guanji. Shui Guanji. Isn't that water pipe? Long Chen was startled. Who had come up with such a name? Shui Wuhan was also startled for a moment. Now that Long Chen mentioned it, she found that this name truly was a bit odd. The others also felt this name to be outlandish. Cough, his name might be a bit strange, but you should still be careful around him. He is very strong, warned Shui Wuhan. Isn't he from your family? Why do we have to be careful? Asked Tang Wanner. Long Chen was speechless. How could she view things so simply? Any power, as long as it grew strong enough, would begin to give rise to endless internal conflicts. Humans were very marvelous creatures. It was like it was in their nature to dislike beauty and peace. When they saw something beautiful, they had an urge to destroy or pollute it. Even a nation, a family, a sect, any power, after undergoing the baptism of a fierce war, they would only be united for a short period. Once they enjoyed peace for too long, once they forgot the pain of their wounds, they would start an internal conflict again. Foolish girl, after we became acquainted in the 108th monastery, have you forgotten just how many pitfalls we ran into? You think the Shui family is a collective whole and should be united, but then wouldn't others also think that our 108th monastery was a collective whole? Have you forgotten the truth? Asked Longchen. Oh, Tang Wanner nodded with embarrassment. She suddenly asked, Longchen, do you think I'm very foolish sometimes? No, Longchen shook his head. Really? Tang Wanner was delighted. This acknowledgement from Longchen was good to hear, but his next words weren't so delightful to her. It's not that you're sometimes foolish, but that you're always this foolish. Bastard! Raged Tang Wanner. She looked just like an infuriated but beautiful tigress that wanted to take a bite out of Longchen. But she was held back by Meng Qi. Wanner, don't make a fuss. The monastery head is trying to give us a proper explanation, advised Meng Qi. Sister, Longchen is bullying me, cried Tang Wanner resentfully. It's not like this is the first time. He often acts like this with you. Once you get accustomed to it, you'll be fine, consoled Meng Qi. Shui Wuhan sighed, a bit speechless. You children really give me a headache. Shui Wuhan truly was worried. Out of these people, the only one who was rather normal was Meng Qi. She was much more dutiful and steady. The rest were all like Longchen, a bunch of troublemakers. Furthermore, all of them were incredibly daring. She had introduced these terrifying figures to give them a warning and make them reserve themselves. But it seemed she had wasted her efforts. All right, you can continue here. I'll take a rest. Shui Wuhan stood up, said her goodbyes, and just left. Everyone was startled. Meng Qi hastily gave Longchen a glance, and he immediately understood and followed Shui Wuhan. Big sister, are you angry? Longchen smiled. No. Ha ha ha. Big sister, it seems your words don't match your heart, laughed Longchen. You little brat, if you laugh again, I'll give you a beating, raged Shui Wuhan. All right, fine. Big sister, I know you told us all of that out of kindness. Look at me, I might be laughing, but I'm very clear on that. I'm not someone who doesn't know what's important and what's not. Longchen knew Shui Wuhan had good intentions, but they had laughed it off, and that naturally did not give her a good feeling. No matter how old you became, no matter how high your cultivation base became, such a thing would naturally make a person feel unwell. And compared to men, women like to be more meticulous. She truly did feel a bit unwell inside due to their actions. Furthermore, she was their monastery head. Accompany me for a stroll, sighed Shui Wuhan. Of course, Longchen didn't refuse. As if it were the most natural thing in the world, he wrapped an arm around Shui Wuhan's arm, acting as if she were his sister. Shui Wuhan shook slightly, but she didn't throw him off. The two of them slowly began to walk. This was the 36th Supermonastery's camp, and their territory was extremely large. Longchen and Shui Wuhan walked alongside each other to a small lake. The lake water was extremely clear, and koi swam freely inside. It was extremely peaceful and comforting. Shui Wuhan bitterly smiled. Longchen, you really are a demon. Sometimes you make a person so happy that they want to kiss you, and sometimes you make them so infuriated that they want to give you a beating. Shui Wuhan's mood hadn't been good, but with how obediently Longchen was acting now, she didn't have the heart to berate him. Hee, I already have quite a bit of experience of big sister beating me, but it seems I have no memory of being kissed. Should we try it? Laughed Longchen. Shui Wuhan rapped Longchen on the chest. She had an urge to rebuke him, but then seeing his smile, she also couldn't hold back a laugh. Only then did Longchen get down to business. Big sister, I know you were warning us for our own good. Although in terms of worldly wisdom, I'm not comparable to you, I have my own martial path. Since I've chosen that path, I can't waver. If I do, I'll never be able to advance again. My Tao is one of advancing forward no matter what. If mountains block me, I'll split mountains. If rivers block me, I'll split rivers. Even if mountains of corpses and seas of blood appear, I still won't retreat. nor will I detour. This is my Tao. This is my conviction. Perhaps others aren't able to understand it and will think that I am stupid. But I know what I'm doing. I would rather be a glorious firework than a long-lasting rock. In fact, we all feel that way. Shui Wuhan's heart shook. She hadn't expected Long Chun to be so obstinate. What he was describing was the undefeatable Tao, the hardest path to walk. In order to maintain a bright Tao heart, he could never suffer defeat in his entire life. But that was impossible. A cultivator would run into countless experts in their lives. Who could possibly guarantee that they would never lose? Once they lost, their Tao heart would waver, and their cultivation base would never advance again. And it wasn't just Long Chun. He was bringing with him a group of people to walk this path. That was too crazy. But with her understanding of Long Chun, she knew he wouldn't listen to anyone else's advice. Thinking of that, she couldn't help sighing. Everything would be up to him. Long Chun didn't dislike Shui Wuhan's nagging. On the other hand, he appreciated it because it meant Shui Wuhan truly did care about him. Is everything from that side handled? Asked Shui Wuhan. Pretty much. Long Chun gave her a general summary of what had happened in the pill tower. He didn't need to hide anything from Shui Wuhan. When she heard that the Hua family had been eradicated and that the Fong and Chai family heads had been killed by him, Shui Wuhan was shocked. If it had been someone else who had said this, she wouldn't believe it even if they beat her to death. It really is unexpected that Fong Mingyuan and Chai Gaoyang would be blinded in the end. Regretful, sighed Shui Wuhan. In truth, just how many higher-ups are able to keep their conscience? In their eyes, there is no right and wrong. There is only profit. When the profit is big enough, they won't even hesitate. I've experienced far too much of that kind of thing. Let alone the Fong and Chai families. Even if I joined the Shui family, I'm certain the Shui family head would also have made the same decision as them. That's why I refused to join the Shui family back then. Unless you are able to become the family head, I have no confidence in the Shui family, said Long Chun. Hearing that he didn't trust her family head, Shui Wuhan was a bit distressed. After all, that was her senior. But she had no choice but to admit that his words were extremely correct. And his last sentence and his trust in her warmed her heart. All right, you can leave now. Go accompany those beauties and brothers of yours. Shui Wuhan smiled. What about you? Me? Forget about it. I really am unable to talk with you children. Shui Wuhan shook her head. Everyone drank quickly with how excited they were, and in less than a few hours, they collapsed from intoxication. Long Chun also drank quickly, because it had been a long time since he had relaxed like this. In his drunken, collapsed state, all he could remember was that someone helped him back to his room. Lying on his bed, Long Chun could recall two soft bodies and fragrant scents being present. He felt like he was floating in the clouds as he descended into a deep slumber. Long Chun, get up. It's morning and we have to go sign in. Long Chun was still deep in his slumber when Tang Wanner's voice woke him up. He really didn't want to get up. He hadn't slept this well in a long time. With his eyes closed, he tried to pull Tang Wanner into his embrace. But as a result, his hand ended up touching a soft and bouncy place. Ah! Tang Wanner shrieked, and seeing Long Chen's but facing her, she viciously aimed a slap there. In his drowsy state, Long Chun still didn't know what was happening. He turned, muttering, "Let me sleep, H." He had only just turned when Tang Wanner's hand landed on his crotch. Long Chin instantly shot up. "Ah, sorry. I didn't do it on purpose." Seeing Long Chun holding his crotch with a pained expression, Tang Wanner panicked. Are you trying to cripple me?" Long Chun was sweating from the pain. He finally understood what the pain of the balls was. So those people he had hit there had actually been in this much pain. This location was definitely fatal. But it was a good thing Tang Wanner's physical strength wasn't too high, or he would have been done for. I can help you massage it," said Tang Wanner in her panic. Fine, let's start now." Long Chun let go of his crotch. "Bastard. I knew you were just faking," raged Tang Wanner. Her panicked expression had long since vanished to be replaced with a crafty smile. Damn it, she completely sees through this now. Looks like I'll need to switch up my ways in the future. Long Chun was speechless. After being with him so much, Tang Wanner had completely adapted to his little tricks. However, it was true that that slap hadn't been painless. You two don't mess around. It's time to sign in. Meng Qi walked in, speechless at what she was seeing. Here. These are the disciple robes I got for you. Tang Wanner and Meng Qi helped to take off Long Chen's black robes. Why do I have to wear white? Ugh. It looks like I'm going to my funeral or something. Long Chen didn't like wearing white. The main thing was that this color got dirty the easiest. With his character, it would probably change color in just a day, most likely to red. Don't fuss. If the law enforcement disciples heard that, you would be punished, warned Meng Qi. Meng Qi and Tang Wanner helped him put on his new robes. This was his first time experiencing such a pleasure. Just what a blessing was it for two peerless beauties to help him change his robes. Now, Meng Qi was helping him straighten his collar with a tender expression. Meng Qi, you really are beautiful. I missed you so much. Let me kiss you. Aya. Don't joke around. Meng Qi lightly hit Long Chen. She was both embarrassed and vexed, but that gave her an even more intoxicating look to Long Chen. Sai Wanner, Meng Qi doesn't want my gift. Quickly come over here, and I'll bestow it to you, Aya. Can you not be more gentle? Long Chen hadn't even finished speaking when a fist beat his back. Tang Wanner was much fiercer than Meng Qi. In the end, the two women were satisfied with his white robes. He appeared exceptionally dashing like this. Yup, with these looks, you could definitely entice more beauties, teased Tang Wanner. Miss Beauty, please entice me, laughed Long Chen. Dislikable. Let's go sign in. Previously, when the others signed in, they always had to sneak over to avoid others finding trouble for them. As for me and Sister Meng Qi, it was always inconvenient for us to go out. Now that you've arrived, let's go together and see just who dares to find trouble for us, said Tang Wanner. Although Long Chun was sometimes too obstinate and domineering, in her heart, Long Chun was always the most dependable existence. With Long Chun present, she wouldn't fear anything. The three confidently walked through the plaza. Previously, the others had always snuck their way through. Oh, not bad. The work's almost finished. From a distance, Long Chun saw a large man sitting on his butt, laying bricks. It was the rank 2 celestial he had exchanged blows with yesterday, Zhao Wuji. At this time, Zhao Wuji had finished most of the work. After a couple hundred more bricks, it would be finished. There was a large crowd of people watching him work. Long Chun. Seeing Long Chun arrive, Zhao Wuji was completely infuriated. That bastard had given him all the work. He had spent all night fixing these bricks. But he had heard from others that Long Chun had gotten completely drunk last night. Now he had an urge to immediately throttle him. He was a peerless heavenly genius. When would he have ever had to do such work? But this was the order of the vice sect master. With the kind of person he was, Zhao Wuji knew the vice sect master wouldn't go back on his orders. Even his monastery head had personally come to warn him to endure this. Otherwise, he really would be screwed. Zhao Wuji had no choice but to swallow his anger. Seeing Long Chun with Meng Qi and Tang Wanner on his arms, looking as if they were flaunting their relationship in front of him, that anger almost drove him crazy. TCH, you really are narrow-minded. Isn't it just some small work? Are you mad I didn't pay you? Here. Long Chun disdainfully tossed him a purse and left just like that. Zhao Wuji instinctively received the purse. He thought the inside was empty, but when he tilted it, a copper coin fell out and landed on the ground. As it spun on the ground, it seemed like it was laughing at him. Long Chun. Zhao Wuji roared and was about to charge at him. Senior apprentice brother Zhao, you can't. Several of the Celestials immediately went to hold him back. But Zhao Wuji was too strong, and these people were actually unable to physically stop him. One of them shouted, Senior apprentice brother Zhao, if you fight, you won't be able to attend the trial. Only then did he calm down slightly. He forcibly suppressed his rage. Seeing Long Chun brazenly swagger away, he suddenly let out a furious roar. This was his only way of releasing his anger, or he would definitely go crazy. Haha, Long Chun, you really are evil. But I like it. Tang Wanner was holding Long Chen's arm, laughing. That person looks just like a bear. But he actually dares to say he'll take me and Sister Meng Qi. Truly courting death. Exactly. To dare have the thought of snatching my Long Chen's women, he definitely is courting death. TCH, leaving things like this really ends with me being the one to lose out. Long Chun suddenly shook his head. What do you want to do? Do you want to fight him? Asked Meng Qi worriedly. No. I was thinking that I should go snatch his woman, said Long Chen. Scoundrel, his woman is definitely a giant female bear. Your taste couldn't have changed that drastically, right? Raged Tang Wanner. Ah, you're right. Then let's forget about it. Laughed Long Chun. You too. When will you grow up? Don't you see others looking at you? Pay attention to your status. Also, Wanner, don't keep calling Long Chun bastard and scoundrel. That's not good, and it is harmful to his prestige, advised Meng Qi. Oh, I understand, sister. Tang Wanner obediently nodded. She often listened to Meng Qi, as she was older than her. It's fine. This is Wanner's term of endearment for me. That's because my goal has always been to be a new and improved scoundrel, laughed Long Chun. When others called him scoundrel, that was an insult. But when Tang Wanner called him that, it reminded the two of them of their first time together. Long Chun. Tang Wanner was moved by this. Foolish girl, what do you want? Long Chun, you scoundrel. Meng Qi was speechless. She quickened their pace. Being together with these two required a face impervious to blade or spear, and she didn't have that. She couldn't ignore everyone's strange gazes. The two of them really were a match made in heaven. Wherever they went, they would fight. They never took a break. They quickly reached the registration hall. Meng Qi said, Long Chun, bring out your super monastery seal and place it on the registration book. Super monastery seal? What's that? Asked Long Chun. Meng Qi asked, didn't someone give it to you yesterday? Have you forgotten? I drank so much yesterday. I think I placed it on the table and forgot about it. Long Chun slapped his leg. Now he had to run back. But he didn't make Meng Qi and Tang Wanner come with him. He rushed back on his own. He had only just rushed out of the door when he collided with someone who had coincidentally been coming in. When they collided, a layer of light suddenly appeared out of that person and sent Long Chun flying back. But that person also stumbled back. Are you blind? The newcomer was a woman. She was slender and beautiful. Her long hair was like a waterfall rippling to her waist. She was very beautiful, and she even possessed a grand charm. She was a beauty who possessed both looks and elegance. But there was also a great arrogance that came from her. Her words were especially vexing to a person. Long Chun had been about to apologize, but hearing her chiding, he was irritated. If you weren't blind, you wouldn't have walked into me. Don't try to put all the blame on one side. Don't be the pot calling the kettle black. Long Chun, what is it? Meng Qi and Tang Wanner hastily came out to take a look upon hearing Long Chen's words. When they did, they were both startled. Zhong Wuyen, cried Meng Qi and Tang Wanner. She was Zhong Wuyen? Long Chun couldn't help being startled. How could there be something this coincidental? You are Long Chun? Zhong Wuyen icily looked at Long Chun and then shook her head. Truly two flowers stuck in manure. At least it's better than being stuck nowhere, raged Long Chun. What mental illness did this woman have? It wasn't as if he had provoked her. Zhong Wuyen merely snorted and entered to sign in. What happened, Long Chun? Why would you fight here? Asked Meng Qi. Only a ghost would know. My guess is that she didn't take her medicine before leaving the house. Or perhaps she took the wrong medicine. Just wait here while I get my seal, said Long Chen. I think we should go with you. With your temperament, when you run into Zhao Wuji, if he doesn't attack you first, you'll probably be the one to attack him. Meng Qi shook her head. If they really let Long Chen go alone, Then in his furious state, if Zhao Wuji provoked him even slightly, he might explode. Meng Qi really understood Long Chun the best. It was better to be safe. When they had finally gotten the super monastery seal and returned, Zhong Wuyan had already left, allowing Meng Qi and Tang Waner to sigh a breath of relief. Long Chun, do you think Zhong Wuyan is beautiful? Tang Waner suddenly asked on the way back. Just barely. Although he disliked her as a person, he had no choice but to admit that she truly was beautiful. A person had to discuss things without bias. Then would you like her? Asked Tang Waner. Like her? Why would I like her? Don't mess around. I'm being serious. Fine, then I'll tell the truth. I don't like her, said Long Chen. Why not? She's very beautiful. Tang Waner continued in her questioning, refusing to let Long Chen off just like this. What? Do I have to like someone just because they look beautiful? Long Chen was practically speechless. What kind of logic was this? Don't change the subject. Is she as beautiful as me and Sister Meng Qi? Waner. Meng Qi was blushing. Who asked people questions like this? Long Chen laughed. When it comes to beauty, she might barely be able to stand on the same level as you. But when it comes to the vastness of her heart, she is too lacking. The vastness of her heart? Meng Qi and Tang Waner didn't understand what he was saying at first, but following his gaze to their chests, the two of them immediately blushed. Long Chun, you pervert. How dare you say something like that? Long Chen laughed and ran off. Meng Qi and Tang Waner shot off in hot pursuit. It had been a long time since Long Chun had felt this relaxed, laughing and talking with his beauties. Although he liked this kind of feeling, once they got back, he had to get down to business. He gave Hua Wufang's spatial ring to Meng Qi and Tang Waner so they could organize what was inside. At the same time, he thought of what he had won for taking first place at the Pill Emperor competition. He hastily looked inside that golden spatial ring. This was also a huge life ring, and it was even vaster than Hua Wufang's. A pill furnace. Long Chun saw three things in the ring. One was a golden pill furnace. The runes carved onto it gave it an elegant aura. It's actually a pill furnace on the enchanted item level. Long Chun was shocked. Pill furnaces were a must-have for alchemists, second only to pill flames. But pill furnaces were no ordinary items, and not just anyone could create them. An ordinary forging master might be able to create all kinds of weapons, but they would be unable to create a furnace. That was because forging a pill furnace required the usage of a pill flame. Only through the usage of pill flame would the furnace possess its own spirituality. Then, refining more pills wouldn't cause it to wear down but would instead nourish it. As it refined more pills, its quality would increase. The more a pill furnace was used, the more valuable it became. So true alchemists would always pass on their pill furnace to their most beloved disciple before dying. However, to have this kind of effect, the pill furnace had to have reached the enchanted level. Other pill furnaces could also possess a slight nourishing effect, but that effect was essentially negligible. Pill furnaces on the enchanted level had special formation runes carved into them. When refining pills, those runes would draw the surrounding natural energy into the pills to raise their quality. The alchemist could also use their spiritual strength to multiply the effects of those runes, but not every alchemist had that qualification. That was because just refining the pill would be very taxing on their spiritual strength, and they wouldn't have any leftover energy to activate the runes. But Long Chen was different. His spiritual strength was incredibly vast, and he wasn't even able to finish using it all. This furnace was practically tailor-made for him. Hee, a treasure. Definitely a treasure. I'll be able to refine twice as fast with half the effort now. Long Chun was delighted. In Hua Wufang's spatial ring, he had found a 6th-tier pill furnace. It was definitely peak grade amongst 6th-tier furnaces. At that time, he had directly thrown it into the primal chaos space. But compared to this enchanted level pill furnace, that 6th-tier furnace was absolute trash. Just this pill furnace completely satisfied him. Currently, he had consumed close to 1,000 Enlightenment Palace pills, but the cyclone had still not reached its peak state. He estimated he would need close to another 1,000 to reach that point. The main problem was that the pills he was consuming weren't high enough quality. Huolong was only able to refine one-ring pills. That was much lower quality than the pills he refined personally. But he didn't have enough time to refine. This enchanted level pill furnace solved one of his urgent needs. Although the quality of the pills wouldn't immediately be much higher, as time passed, under an earth flame and the medicinal pills nourishing, this pill furnace would become better and better, allowing the quality to gradually increase. The more the furnace was used, the better. He directly tossed the pill furnace to Huolong, having it continue refining Enlightenment Palace pills. He would need to trouble Huolong during this time. Normally, when Huolong wasn't refining pills, it was devouring the energy from the beast flames. Once it got full, it would continue working. Long Chen moved on to the next item. It was a prayer mat. It was woven out of 9 heavenly unicorn grass. What money! Long Chen was shocked. This was a kind of extremely magical grass that could nourish a person's soul. A single stalk of it could be used for 100 years. But this entire mat was woven out of it. There had to be at least hundreds of stalks. Unfortunately, although it's a good treasure and practically a divine item to alchemists, it's useless for me. But Meng Qi and Wan'er can use it, and it'll be especially beneficial to Meng Qi since she's a pure soul cultivator. She has no suitable house pets right now, and so she has to rely entirely on soul arts. With this prayer mat, her cultivation will definitely advance rapidly, and there's no worry of her foundation growing unstable as a soul cultivator. I suppose I'll first take out a stalk and plant it in the primal chaos space. After that, he moved on to the third and final item. Damn it, they really cheated me. The last item was a medicinal pill. It was known as an ancient pill, something that had flowed down from the ancient era. The pill Dao was filled with variations. Although the majority of medicinal pills were supposed to be consumed immediately or within a certain amount of time, some weren't. They were to be stored over long periods of time. These pills were covered in a special layer called a pill veil that allowed them to absorb energy from the sun and the moon to nourish the pill. This nourishing effect was very slow. The method to refine such pills had already been lost. Thus, such pills were normally only found when exploring ancient ruins. But not all pills could be stored for so long. Some pills would eventually become toxic, and as soon as you consumed them, you could ascend. Although this pill was covered in a pill veil, Long Chen could tell what pill it was. It was a 7th-tier pill, the Hidden Glyph Tiger Soul Pill. Its main ingredient was a 7th-rank Hidden Glyph Tiger's soul. The Hidden Glyph Tiger was a magical beast from the ancient era. But even back then, it had been extremely rare. The Hidden Glyph Tiger had a set of lines on its body. Those lines weren't set at their birth. Instead, those lines would constantly change as their cultivation base grew. It was rumored that the Hidden Glyph Tiger was no ordinary magical beast. It actually relied on comprehending the heavenly Daos in order to cultivate. That sounded like absolute nonsense. If magical beasts relied on comprehending the heavenly Daos, would they even be magical beasts? However, this kind of backwards magical beast did exist. The Hidden Glyph Tiger's essence soul contained extremely dense heavenly Tao energy. That kind of energy was very miraculous, and could help a person comprehend the heavenly Daos and allow them to break through a bottleneck. After absorbing the sun and moon's essence for countless years, its rings had disappeared. Instead, a figure could be seen on the outside of the pill. That figure moved about as if it were alive. This pill had already broken through the limit of high-grade pills to reach the top-grade classification. If Long Chen were to use a top-grade 7th-tier Hidden Glyph Tiger Soul pill to break through to see expansion, it would be an absolute waste of a treasure. More importantly, this thing was essentially useless to Long Chen. He cultivated the 9-star Hegemon body art. His cultivation path was different from others, and this pill would have no effect on him. Furthermore, it wasn't just that he couldn't use it. The others had no need of it either. Everyone's foundations in the Xiantian realm were incomparably solid. Even without this pill, they would smoothly reach the sea expansion realm. If I add some material to this pill, I could give it to Big Sister. If she's lucky, she'll have a definite chance of breaking through to foundation forging. Then with an ancestor-level expert backing me, couldn't I be as crazy as I wanted to be in the Xiantian Dao sect? I could slap whoever I want. I could snatch whoever's women I wanted. For a C expansion expert, this pill's effect would be a bit lacking. But Long Chun found a very complicated formula within the pill god memories. That night, he refined a bowl of medicinal liquid. This medicinal liquid had no use on its own, but when consumed with the hidden glyph Tiger Soul pill, the combined medicinal effect would be 10 times greater. Even Shui Wuhan, a late C expansion expert, would have a good chance of advancing. Just like that, holding the bowl of medicinal liquid, Long Chun rushed off towards Shui Wuhan's residence. Leaving Shui Wuhan's residence, Long Chun was filled with anticipation. If Shui Wuhan could reach foundation forging, he would truly have found a reliable backer for himself. Shui Wuhan had at first been confused upon seeing Long Chun bringing her a medicinal pill and liquid. Long Chun directly explained that they were special medicine he had refined just for her. Although she found this odd as she didn't know much about alchemy, she still consumed them due to her trust in Long Chun. As soon as she did, her expression became one of wild delight. She immediately felt her mental state enter a state of emptiness, and her perception of the heavenly Taos gradually grew clearer. The greatest gain was that she actually felt her bottleneck weaken slightly. She was far too familiar with that feeling. She had felt that 3 times in the past. Unfortunately, she had never been able to grab hold of that opportunity. Now, without Long Chen's reminder, she immediately knew what to do. She focused on entering a perfect meditative state to take advantage of this opportunity. For C expansion experts, advancing to foundation forging wasn't as simple as just attacking the barrier. Shui Wuhan had already been at the late C expansion realm for almost 500 years. She had tried attacking foundation forging 3 times, but she had failed. Trying to reach foundation forging through force was useless. It relied on grabbing hold of a certain kind of opportunity that the heavenly Taos bestowed on you. When a person's mind entered a state of complete calm, it would be easier to grasp that opportunity. But the world was filled with countless worries. No one was truly able to keep their mind and heart in a perfect state of calm with no distracting thoughts. After failing 3 times, Shui Wuhan had already become a bit dejected. She hadn't managed to feel this kind of opportunity in the last 300 years. She had already accepted that she would never be able to reach foundation forging. Now Long Chun had given her another chance. Furthermore, her comprehension of the heavenly Taos had never been this clear before. She would go all out in her attempt to seize this opportunity and forge an immortal platform. Foundation forging referred to creating a platform on top of the expanded sea. This platform was sometimes called the Immortal platform. It was also sometimes called the Tao platform. It was the foundation for your chance of ever becoming an immortal or god. It could be said that only once you reached foundation forging were you a true cultivator. As for those so-called immortals and gods, they were just a legend. But it was true that once you reached foundation forging, your lifespan would extend a great deal. C expansion experts had a lifespan of around 1500 years. However, Shui Wuhan would only have a lifespan of 1200 years. That was because most women, especially beautiful women, would train in a kind of secret art. At the price of reducing their lifespan, they could maintain their youthful appearance. That was also why there were many old men in C expansion but not many old women. But once you reached foundation forging and created your immortal platform, you would be able to absorb the exceedingly thin immortal chi in the air. Then your lifespan would increase to 5,000 years, and your youthful looks would be restored. Long Chun was only able to help out this much. The rest would be up to Shui Wuhan. According to reason, she should have a good chance. When Long Chun returned, he saw Meng Qi and Tang Wanner holding hands and quietly whispering about something. He didn't know what they were saying, but when they saw him, they immediately turned red and shut their mouths. To talk badly about someone behind their back, each person is punished with 1 kiss. Long Chun suddenly swooped down and gave Meng Qi and Tang Wanner a kiss each. The 2 of them released a tempest of fists against him. He laughed and rushed off to his private training room. The trial was about to start, and he had to take advantage of this time to increase his strength. Out of the 4 heavenly geniuses, he had run into 2. That bear had already become enemies with him. Thus, there would definitely be someone to play with in the trial. Shui Wuhan had told him that he was an earth attribute expert. If he summoned the cry of the heavenly Daos, then whether it was heaven or earth, endless energy would become his to use. He was different from a fake like Huo Wufang. He was a true rank 2 celestial, and the two of them were as different as heaven and earth. Although Long Chun wasn't afraid of him, if he was speaking frankly, his chances of winning weren't high. As for Zhong Wuyen, she was clearly no kind-hearted woman. As soon as she opened her mouth, it was like she wanted to take a bite out of someone. Furthermore, Long Chun felt she was too arrogant. She liked to look down her nose on people. That was something that he didn't like. Although she wouldn't necessarily be an enemy, the chances of them becoming allies were essentially zero. As for the other two, he doubted they would be well-disposed toward him, especially that water pipe. He would very likely make things hard for him in the trial. According to Shui Wuhan, this trial was extremely beneficial. So many people would be going all out for this trial. It was because Long Chun knew this trial was so important that he trusted that Zhao Wuji would definitely tidy all the bricks so he could participate. Right now, Long Chun needed to urgently increase his strength. Otherwise, in the trial, he might get suppressed. Then it wouldn't be so fun. He took out his pill furnace. He needed to personally refine some higher-grade pills to condense the cyclone. Ah, how refreshing. Long Chun had only just opened the furnace when it began to dimly shine. As he poured in his spiritual strength, the furnace's runes grew brighter, almost looking like they were alive. He had only just poured in the powders when they instantly merged. The pill furnace also gave him much greater control, and he didn't need to worry about the flame suddenly growing and turning the ingredients to ashes. Also, the pill furnace's runes were being activated by his spiritual strength, which absorbed the air's energy and poured it into the pills. The furnace shook slightly. Long Chun was stunned. He had actually refined it so quickly. Opening the lid, he saw 9 jade-like sparkling pills that were still slowly rolling in the furnace. Damn, they're all 9-ring pills. This is too amazing. Long Chun gulped. This was the best pill furnace he had ever encountered. In his delight, he refined 9 furnaces of pills in one go, and they were all 9-ring pills. And with the nourishment of his soul, the pill furnace only became better. After that, he placed the furnace back in the primal chaos space and had Huolong refine on its own. In any case, Huolong didn't have anything better to do. The beast flames it had confined were only able to give him a single bite of energy after a whole day's recovery. Huolong had nothing else to do during the rest of the day, so it directly became Long Chen's hard-working apprentice. As Huolong's strength increased, its intelligence also grew. It actually gave birth to the slightest bit of soul energy. It was able to communicate simple thoughts with Long Chun, and it could even use its soul energy when refining. Boom! An explosive sound came from Long Chen's body. He was delighted, thinking that the cyclone had been fully formed. But then he realized he was wrong. Instead, he had advanced to the 3rd heaven stage of Xiantian. Although he hadn't deliberately cultivated, the enormous amount of energy in over 1,000 Enlightenment Palace pills had pushed his cultivation base higher. 81 9-ring Enlightenment Palace pills were consumed in just a few hours. It went without saying that the energy contained in 9-ring pills was truly enormous. The cyclone had grown much larger. Long Chun estimated that he would completely condense it with just 100 more pills. He was about to continue refining when Tang Wan'er called him out. Everyone had gathered. The trial was about to start. Long Chun tidied up and walked out with Tang Wan'er. He had only just come out when he saw Meng Qi talking to Shui Wuhan. It was a failure? Long Chun couldn't help being disappointed upon seeing Shui Wuhan. Her aura hadn't changed in the slightest. Shui Wuhan was doing her best to suppress her emotions, but she was unable to conceal the excitement and delight in her eyes. She didn't hide the truth from him. She whispered, "It was a success. But your aura." "Fool, the foundation forging realm is different from other realms. Even if I manage to take advantage of this opportunity, condensing the foundation takes a long time. Only through a great deal of time and effort is it possible to create the Immortal platform. Only once the Immortal platform takes form will I go through the baptism of heavenly tribulation and become able to sense the immortal spiritual qi in the world. Only then will I be a true ancestor-level expert. I've already begun to condense the foundation in my qi si. In other words, I'll quickly become an ancestor-level expert. It's just that others aren't able to sense it yet. The constant solemn and stern expression on Shui Wuhan's face finally disappeared. She seemed like a woman in the springtime of her youth, and a smile of excitement appeared on her face. Ha ha! Congratulations, big sister. Doesn't that mean that I can be as crazy as I want in the Shentian Dao sect now? Long Chun was also incomparably excited. The feeling of having a reliable backer was truly good. Seeing his evil smile, Shui Wuhan's excitement faded by at least half. She warned, Long Chun, you little brat, you better not intentionally cause any trouble. Even once I advance to foundation forging, my status will only be on the level of the vice sect master. When it comes to combat abilities, I most definitely won't be on the same level as a true ancestor. Most importantly, there's still the sect master above the vice sect master. That's a person who has lived so long they've practically reached the level of a living fossil. Don't mess around, because if you end up disturbing that person, we'll all be doomed. Long Chin awkwardly smiled. Big sister, do you think a well-behaved person like me would intentionally cause trouble? After saying that, he saw Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er looking at him oddly. It could not be more obvious what they were thinking. They didn't believe him. That made Long Chin feel even more awkward. How could these two girls not know how to stick up for him? Shui Wuhan said, All right, let's focus. Make sure to keep this matter secret. Also, gather up the others. In 2 hours, we'll be heading out to the trial region. In front of the ancestral statue of the Shentian Dao sect, the 36 supermonasteries people had all lined up. Long Chun and the others from the 36 supermonastery were all at the very back. Long Chen carefully sized up these people. It was as Shui Wuhan had said. The 36 supermonasteries numbers truly were the lowest of all the supermonasteries, and pitifully low. Because he was standing at the back, Long Chun was unable to catch a glimpse of Zhao Wuji and the others. Furthermore, it wasn't suitable to use his spiritual strength to nose around here. That was especially true since there were women here too. This kind of spiritual probing was no different than peeping at them. He would definitely be cursed. There were almost 100,000 elite disciples here who had all reached the Xiantian realm. That was truly shocking. The Shentian Dao sect's 4 families experts had also gathered. They were atop a large stage at the front. There was still an empty spot on that stage, and that was for the vice sect master. He hadn't arrived yet, but the 4 families had already gathered. Long Chun narrowed his eyes. At the front of the 4 families were 4 ancient elders that were currently discussing something. Long Chun was speechless. Considering how old they looked, it was difficult for him to tell who was who. It was unknown just how many centuries these old fellows had lived for. In any case, their wrinkles were more concentrated than the growth rings of oak trees, and their hair was as white as snow. But their gazes were still alive and healthy. The feeling they gave Long Chun was that they were wily old foxes that had taken human form. These 4 were the family heads. Although their cultivation bases had only reached the late sea expansion realm, the reason they had become their family's heads wasn't because of strength, but because of their brilliant methods. That was what had won them the favor of the previous generation's family heads. The leftmost elder was the Chu family's head, Chu Chengfeng. The first supermonastery, in other words, the strongest supermonastery, was amongst the 9 supermonasteries they controlled. The second-rank celestial, Yu Qianshan, also came from the first supermonastery. The next one was an elder with a long mustache and beard. He was the Shui family's head, Shui Yunsong. Although these 4 were all ancient elders, when comparing them, Shui Yunsong was at least slightly better looking than the others. Shui Wuhan sat behind him. Her eyes were closed, clearly displaying her indifference toward the ones around her. She appeared a bit isolated when compared to the others who were constantly discussing something. The strongest supermonastery that the Shui family controlled was the 5th supermonastery, and their number 1 genius, Shui Guanji, hailed from there. Rather than saying that Shui Guanji was someone raised by the 5th supermonastery, It was better to say he was someone personally raised by the Shui family. The reason he was placed in the 5th supermonastery was just a formality. Beside Shui Yunsong was an elder whose face was slightly darker. He was the Wang family's head. The 2nd supermonastery was under the administration of the Wang family, while Zhong Wuyan was their peak expert. As for the final elder, he was bald. His head was even shinier than other bald heads. It almost seemed like he had buffed it with wax. The light reflecting off it could light up all of heaven and earth. It was currently noon, and looking from a distance it was like there were 2 suns. This bald elder was from the Shui family's sworn enemy, the Zhou family's head, Zhou Tianyi. Although the Shui and Zhou families didn't get along, when the 4 family heads chatted, they actually seemed to be chatting very amicably. Brother Yunsong, congratulations. Your Shui family not only has Shui Guanji, but now even Longchun has returned. That's a cause for celebration, said Zhou Tianyi with a smile. Haha, this is the old ancestor's blessing. He wouldn't allow a genius to fall just like this. Many thanks for your care, Brother Tianyi, responded Shui Yunsong. He knew this old fellow was probing him. As expected, Zhou Tianyi said, myself and the others are very curious. How did Longchen manage to survive that heavenly punishment? After all, the Corrupt Path's 5C expansion experts, 9 celestials, and 80,000 elite disciples were all exterminated by it without a single one of them living. But Longchen did. It really is puzzling. Let alone Zhou Tianyi. Even the other 2 family heads were shocked upon hearing that Longchen had returned. What had happened in the Chaos region was no secret in the Shantian Dao sect. Although this matter had been mainly caused by the Pill Tower's Hua family, the Zhou family had been the one to act as a go-between. The photographic jade was proof of that, and that had brought on the fury of the vice sect master. The Zhou family had put in a great deal of trouble to settle this affair. Not only had they scapegoated Zhou Qingyi and her son, but they had also given Shui Wuhan an immense amount of resources as compensation. But once that compensation had been given, once their people had been killed, once they had lost those resources, Longchen had suddenly come back alive and well. That made Zhou Tianyi feel like he had swallowed crap. He even suspected that they had known all along that Longchen hadn't died. All to con his Zhou family. Ha, Brother Tianyi. You really are amazing. You're even this clear on their numbers and levels. It really makes a person think. Shui Yunsong laughed sinisterly. Think what? Brother Yunsong, don't talk drivel. Zhou Tianyi's expression sank. Shui Yunsong was clearly trying to say that he had colluded with the Corrupt Path. That charge was something he wouldn't be able to bear, and was something that would result in the destruction of the entire family. The reason the matter with setting up Longchen had drawn the vice sect master's fury was because the Corrupt Path had ended up participating. If that was the case, then it was completely different from an internal struggle. If they hadn't pushed all the blame onto the Hua family, his Zhou family really wouldn't have been able to bear the consequences. Ha, Brother Tianyi, you're too sensitive. My meaning was that I think you must like to gather information. It must be hard on you, laughed Shui Yunsong. But anyone with ears could hear he was intentionally mocking Zhou Tianyi for colluding with the Corrupt Path to set up Longchen. Although this matter had been backed by the Hua family, they were unable to escape that stain. Everyone present was a wily old fox. Zhou Tianyi didn't get angry. If he did get angry, that would put him in a disadvantageous position. He had long since gotten used to this kind of verbal sparring. Haha, I truly did investigate this matter. After all, this was my Zhou family's mistake. We gave birth to degenerate disciples that were swayed by others into doing something foolish. As the family head, I naturally share some of that blame, so I looked deeply into this matter in order to get justice for Longchen. Otherwise, how would I face these disciples? Zhou Tianyi sighed with shame. It was regretful that Longchen wasn't close enough. If he were to hear this, he would probably have to prostrate himself toward him in admiration. He would definitely have to ask, just how did you manage to make your face this thick? But these old fellows were all capable of committing shameful and shameless acts without batting an eye. Shui Wuhan had her eyes closed, but her mouth was curled in a mocking smile. She didn't want to speak. She didn't want to participate in this kind of hypocritical fight of words. As for why she didn't open her eyes, it was because she was afraid of puking upon seeing their faces. Brother Tianyi truly is a person of unquestionable integrity and character, a model for all of us, praised Shui Yunsong. But when others heard it, it somehow sounded mocking. I wouldn't dare to accept such praise. But I do feel like it would simply be the right thing for everyone to know the facts. What do you say, monastery head Shui? Zhou Tianyi looked at Shui Wuhan. Upon seeing this, Shui Yunsong frowned slightly, but he didn't say anything in the end. He was still angry with Shui Wuhan. This child was too disobedient. When it came to seniority, Shui Wuhan should call him uncle. But because of the matter with Long Chun, she had even gone against this uncle of hers, causing him to lose face. And when the time came for her to get the compensation, she didn't even consider backing the family. As for the Zhou family, they were truly brilliant. They had intentionally handed the compensation to Shui Wuhan in order to incite internal strife amongst the Shui family. The results were exactly what Zhou Tianyi wanted. Due to Long Chen's death, he had paid a great deal of compensation. But this compensation had been used to incite disharmony with Shui Wuhan and the rest of the Shui family. That had been a brilliant move. But now Long Chun had reappeared, and he felt like he had been duped, as if he had been the one to fall for the Shui family's trap. He even suspected that the disharmony in the Shui family was just an act they were putting on for him to see. What are you talking about? Shui Wuhan slowly opened her eyes. But she didn't look at Zhou Tianyi. She didn't want to look at that glaring bald head. Looking at that oily thing was nauseating. Of course I'm talking about Long Chun. How did he manage to survive? So many people died, and he's the only survivor? I hope Monastery Head Shui can explain it to me with a bit of detail and flair. We're all very curious, said Zhou Tianyi. But his words were clearly a trap. That was especially true about asking her to explain it with flair. It was clearly saying that he hoped for her to come up with a good lie without any holes. It was extremely forceful. However, when such words came from these old fellows' mouths, they always sounded too amiable, making a person think it was just a normal conversation. But in truth, their words all contained hidden blades designed to infuriate their opponents and create holes in their mental states. This skill was essential to a family head. Long Chun said that when he encountered the heavenly punishment, the ground split apart, and he directly jumped in. Then the ground closed behind him, and that's how he dodged the heavenly tribulation. After that, he spent the next few months digging a tunnel to get out. That's why he almost missed the trial, said Shui Wuhan. In truth, she was inventing absolute nonsense. That was a skill she had learned from Long Chun. She felt like after being in contact with Long Chun for so long, her own character had changed. Now she could babble wildly without batting an eye. He spent several months digging a tunnel? Naturally, no one believed it. Yes, Long Chun said that he turned stupid from terror at the time and that he accidentally dug downward. It was only after digging for several months that he realized his mistake and dug the other direction, allowing him to once more see the sun, said Shui Wuhan. What nonsense, raged Zhou Tianyi. She was clearly simply messing with them. No matter how stupid a person was, how could they possibly confuse up and down? If it was just mistaking north, east, south, and west, that was one thing. But no one could possibly be that stupid. I also felt it was nonsense. So if you want to know the truth, if you want more details, if you want more flair, you should go ask Long Chun. He'll definitely give you a satisfactory response. Shui Wuhan smiled. With Long Chen's character, he could make them choke to death with just a single sentence. Shui Wuhan was filled with anticipation. With Long Chen's ability to infuriate others, would he anger these fellows to their deaths when they encountered each other? She even had an urge to call Long Chen over and ask him about this matter right now. Just at this moment, a figure appeared in the sky, and everyone's mouths immediately shut. They hastily stood and bowed. Greetings, Vice Sect Master. The person who had come was the Vice Sect Master. Following his arrival, the somewhat noisy plaza immediately became silent. The Vice Sect Master's gaze roved around everyone. It's time. The Shentian Dao sect's martial trial will soon begin. But before that, let me warn you all. This trial is a huge opportunity for all of you. Cherish it properly. Long Chen's heart shook. Shui Wuhan had also emphasized that this was an opportunity, the greatest benefit the Shen Dao sect bestowed on its disciples. But she hadn't directly said what it was. The vice sect master slowly formed a hand seal, and space began to tremble intensely. Long Chun saw the hundreds of huge stone pillars around the plaza light up with runes. The scene around him instantly changed. This is a formation? Long Chun was shocked. The entire plaza had actually been an enormous transportation formation. The sky became dusky, and the blazing sun had completely disappeared. They appeared on the edge of a huge basin. This basin had a diameter of tens of thousands of miles. The land was a shiny rock that looked as if it had been meticulously polished. It actually looked like a huge wok. What was this for? Were they supposed to cook some kind of giant stir-fry here? This is the first part of the trial, the Shen Si, announced the vice sect master from midair. See, the disciples were all flabbergasted. Where was the sea? Rumble. Suddenly, heaven and earth began to tremble. Everyone hastily looked toward the basin, only to see a huge whirlpool appear. A terrifying pressure caused their hearts to tremble. The whirlpool grew larger and larger. Endless astral winds crazily billowed out like ocean waves. Even from the edge, they felt like it was hard to breathe. They involuntarily retreated a few steps. This wind, Long Chen's heart shook. Now you understand why this is called the Shen Si. The Shen Dao sex trial isn't taking place just here. The Eastern Wasteland, Western Desert, Southern Sea, and Northern Sources branch sects are all undergoing the trial at the same time. The time between martial gatherings differs each time. It is decided by the head sect in the Central Plains. Sometimes it will only happen once every 10 years. Sometimes it will happen once every 50 years. The fact that you coincided with it this time is your luck. This trial is only open to Xiantian disciples. As for what the benefits are, according to the rules, you'll have to experience and test it out for yourselves. This isn't because we don't want to tell you, but because this trial is too miraculous. Each person will obtain different things, and for us to try to guide you based on other people's standards would only harm you. So in this trial, you'll have to grope around yourselves. As for what benefits you can obtain, it'll be up to your luck. The whirlpool at the basin grew larger as the vice sect master spoke. The wind was like a tide. It truly appeared like a vast sea. Long Chun, this tide contains endless wind energy. It's a priceless treasure to me. Tang Wan'er pulled on Long Chen's hand excitedly. This tide contains the will of the sword Dao. I can sense a majestic sword intent within it that is of great assistance to me, said Yu Zifeng. The others were also extremely excited. They could all sense things for themselves. But Long Chen was startled. Why couldn't he sense anything? After another hour, everyone saw that the tide had become extremely clear. Furthermore, it was now split into different colors. The outer region was white, and then it was blue, red, and then the very core was violet. Gradually, the wind transformed into sea waves. However, this sea wasn't made of water, but wind. Everyone finally understood how the glossy ground had come about. Alright, the Shen Sea has formed. You can choose for yourselves what region of the sea you want to stay in, announced the vice sect master. Following his words, several people immediately went in to take a path. But they had only just entered when they were blown back by the wild winds. Those who were stronger merely vomited a mouthful of blood, while those that were weaker directly fainted. With their intelligence, it really is amazing they're still alive, sighed Long Chun. Long Chen really wondered how these people had managed to reach this level of cultivation. One of those people had actually put on a dashing posture of diving into water, as if these waves were ordinary waves. As a result, just by trying to enter the edge of the whirlpool, he almost directly blew apart. People sympathized, but they were also speechless. As for the vice sect master and the other experts, they simply watched without the slightest emotion. Most likely, they had held this trial so many times that they had long since grown indifferent to this situation. Following a few dozen unlucky fellows who paid a miserable price, The others became smarter and entered the waves carefully. As soon as they entered, quite a few people's expressions changed. These waves contained a powerful pressure that was exerting a constant force on their bodies, making it feel like the waves were trying to tear them apart. Just carefully entering little by little took everything they had. They couldn't help feeling admiration for those brave warriors who had tested it just now for them. The people who managed to enter all had expressions of delight. It was obvious they had to be obtaining great benefits right now. Following the first few people, the others no longer hesitated. Some experts even forced their way past the pressure and rushed in. That was because the deeper they went, the greater the pressure and the greater the benefits. Let's go too. Long Chun led the 36th Supermonastery's disciples into the basin. When the waves landed on his body, he finally understood why those people were all so excited. Within these waves were all the various energies of heaven and earth. Hualong and Lei Long almost charged out on their own. Don't fuss. I'll help you absorb it as much as possible. Long Chun hastily tried to control them. If they charged out, they would be too frightening, especially Lei Long. During the tribulation last time, Lei Long had absorbed all the human-shaped lightnings. Its strength had reached a level that even Long Chun found terrifying. Although Hualong had beast flames to absorb energy from, compared to Lei Long, the difference was immense. There was no way around it. Lei Long had had far too much food to consume. To compare, Lei Long had eaten meat, while Hualong was consuming tree bark and grass. One was so fat that oil was about to come out of it, while the other was skin and bones. They were not on the same level. "What dense wind energy!" exclaimed Tang Wan'er. Long Chun knew that this sea contained endless benefits, and the deeper you went, the greater the benefits. Even cultivators without an element could use the energy here to temper the physical body, stabilize the foundation, and comprehend the heavenly Taos. Shui Wuhan had been entirely correct when she said that this was an immense opportunity. This kind of opportunity was something only an enormous existence like the Shentian Dao sect had the qualifications to give. This was the power of a huge sect, power that other sects could never hope to obtain. Heavens! Yu Qianshan has already reached the blue region. The Shentian Sea's outer region took up tens of thousands of miles, while the core region was only a few hundred miles. That core was the violet region. Outside the core region was a red region. This region was 3,000 miles wide. Then there was the blue region, which was 10,000 miles wide. The rest was the white region. This was the largest region, and it was because it was all white that it looked more like coastal waters. This was the weakest region. However, for these people, going through this white region would require pausing every now and then in order to adjust to the new pressure. Only then could they continue. Long Chun raised his head to see a back with a sword on it in the distance. That figure had just charged into the blue region. How fast! His movement technique seems extremely powerful, and Long Chen's heart suddenly shook. That figure was like a shadow as it advanced, completely ignoring this terrifying pressure. It was like he himself was a sword cutting through the resistance. What a powerful sword intent! It has already condensed into a solid state, praised Yu Zifeng as he looked at that figure. There's no need to be envious. He's not your target. Long Chun patted Yu Zifeng on the shoulder. Yu Zifeng nodded. He understood what Long Chun meant. Since he followed Long Chun, then any powerful opponents were only there for him to surpass. While he had been shaken by Yu Qianshan's power just now, he immediately returned to his calm and confident state. Zhao Wuji has also gotten through. Shui Guanji as well. Oh, Zhong Wuyan refuses to fall behind. They truly are worthy of being the four heavenly geniuses. Some disciples couldn't help praising them, as they were filled with worship. The ordinary disciples hadn't even advanced 3,000 miles into the white region, but the heavenly geniuses had already charged into the blue region. That was a show of their power. Long Chun, how about you go as well? I can lead the others, said Tang Wan'er. She knew that if Long Chun were to charge forward as well, he definitely wouldn't be any lacking compared to them. It was just that he was looking after the others. What's the point of competing with a bunch of children? Let's just slowly continue forward. I've long since surpassed the age of wanting to show off like that. Long Chen shook his head. If you put it like that, you'll seem just like those old fossils up there, laughed Tang Wanner. Foolish girl. They can hear everything that's happening here. Don't you see the formation around them? That's to observe us, warned Long Chen. There was no way that anything happening here could escape their eyes. But it was already too late. Long Chen saw that the family head's expressions grew ugly. The vice sect master's expression became a bit odd as well, while Shui Wuhan had an expression between laughter and tears. Tang Wanner stuck out her tongue and nervously asked, "What should I do?" "It's fine. Saying that I'm like those old fossils is praising them. They should feel happy about it, not offended. I'm sure big figures like them are very magnanimous, or they would have wasted all their years. Let's keep going." Long Chen didn't particularly care. In any case, the vice sect master at least appeared slightly younger than the family heads. It was fine as long as they didn't offend him. "Monastery head Shui, your disciples really are courteous. You really brought them up well." Zhou Tianyi turned to look at Shui Wuhan. With the formation here, everything happening within the Shentian Sea was being broadcast in front of them. They could clearly see and hear everything. This way they could get a clear read of every disciple's true potential. So Tang Wanner's words were heard by all of them, and many of them felt displeased. Most of these people were extremely old, but most of them didn't say anything. When it came to being old, the four at the front took the prize. Even the vice sect master only appeared to be in his 50s or 60s. In truth, they could sacrifice some of their longevity to make themselves appear more youthful. But none of them were willing. As for the vice sect master, he could make himself appear younger just by circulating his energy. But he didn't do so because then it would make him seem like he had no experience, as if he was just a junior. The vice sect master was a foundation forging expert. He made it so he appeared to be in his 50s. If it weren't for his white hair, others might even think he was only in his 40s. So although they were all old, they hadn't reached the level of being fossils. The only ones that could receive that resounding title were the four family heads. Only they had those qualifications. That was why it was the four family heads that were offended. Shui Yunsong couldn't say anything since this disciple was technically on his side, while the Wang and Chu family heads didn't say anything, as quibbling with a junior was a loss of status. However, Zhou Tianyi wouldn't give up any chance to target the Shui family, so he immediately made it difficult on them, saying that Long Chen had no upbringing, which insinuated the Shui family hadn't raised him properly. Shui Yunsong was caught in a difficult position. Although he was dissatisfied with Shui Wuhan, this wasn't targeting her, but the entire Shui family. He decided to open his mouth and say, "An old person should act like a senior. If a senior quibbled with a child over a slip of the tongue, it would be unworthy of their age." His words were even more vicious, directly saying that Zhou Tianyi was acting like a child. Zhou Tianyi's expression sank. This slap had been a bit too much, and he was clearly just twisting words. Suddenly, the vice sect master interrupted. "Everyone here is old. Don't argue about such senseless questions. The world is constantly changing and the era is constantly advancing. People grow old. This is the law of all things. The cycle of the heavenly Taos is something no one can resist. This world will always be the world of the young. Don't use our standards for ourselves to judge the world of youngsters. The only thing we have to give to our disciples is an environment, to make it as convenient for them as possible. As for how they choose to grow, we don't need to interfere. According to my experience, if we try to raise them into our ideal disciples, then their accomplishments will never surpass ours. A blood condensation master will only be able to raise a blood condensation disciple. It will be impossible to raise a king. So giving youngsters some space and giving them room to make their own decisions is the only way for them to grow to their peak. The nonsense your four families do when you're bored is something I can't be bothered to deal with. But don't let that nonsense affect our Shintian Dao sect's development. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. I can always report to the head sect that certain families should be abolished. We've all coexisted for so many years. I don't want us to reach a point of either you die or I die. You can fight amongst yourselves, but don't go too far. Everyone's hearts shook. The vice sect master rarely spoke, but now he had suddenly said so much. Furthermore, it was such a severe warning. That was very rare. We understand. The 4 family heads hastily bowed. The vice sect master nodded. This time, our branch sect has given rise to 4 heavenly geniuses, and even an unexpected fellow like Long Chun has joined in. This is our branch sect's most flourishing period in the last few millennia. Perhaps our branch sect will finally be able to shine during the immemorial pathway, increasing the prestige of our Shintian Dao sect. Even the sect master views the immemorial pathway as extremely important. So this is me warning you not to go overboard. It would be best for us not to stick our hands in a struggle between children. If you really feel like you can't hold back, bind your hand to your leg, or don't blame me for the consequences. The sect master? Everyone let out a startled cry. The sect master had always been a mysterious existence. Even the 4 family heads had never seen this sect master. It was unexpected that the sect master would be paying attention to the trial this time. They knew the vice sect master wasn't trying to scare them. The sect master had to have intentionally told him to say this. If someone dared to cause trouble now, they really would be asking to die. There's no need to encourage the struggle between the youngsters, but there's also no need to intentionally resolve it. Each person has their own fate, so let them do as they please, said the vice sect master. Understood. Everyone hastily responded. They all understood that for him to give such a solemn warning, this matter was probably bigger than they had imagined. But why? Was the sect master personally watching? During this exchange of words, Long Chun had been leading everyone from the 36th supermonastery into the Shentian Sea. Although they didn't travel quickly, they kept their speed constant. They never took a break, so they still advanced rapidly. They arrived right before the blue zone in just 2 hours. The pressure was even greater here, and some of the ordinary disciples turned pale, almost unable to endure it. But the Dragon Blood warriors' expressions didn't change. This pressure couldn't count as anything. They had endured far worse during their terrifying heavenly tribulation. However, the other disciples from their supermonastery were unable to endure it. They were just ordinary disciples. And originally they shouldn't have been able to advance this far so quickly. It was only because Long Chun was at the very front. A portion of the pressure was blocked by him, and then behind him were the Dragon Blood warriors who blocked another portion of the pressure. That was the only reason why they managed to reach this point. Currently, the ordinary Shentian disciples were still near the edge of the Shentian Sea and slowly advancing. That was because each supermonastery's expert had long since rushed off, using their greatest speed to reach their limit. Who would waste their time helping others? The only supermonastery that was advancing as a group was the 36th supermonastery. That flabbergasted quite a few people, but it also made them feel admiration for Long Chun. News that Long Chun and Zhao Wuji had exchanged blows without either side taking the advantage had already spread. Everyone in the Shentian Dao sect knew Long Chun's name now. Many people thought that even if he wasn't on the same level as the 4 heavenly geniuses, he should at least have some ability to fight them. That was already very amazing. Most importantly, Long Chun was not even a celestial. Now seeing Long Chun actually looking after others while the other supermonastery's experts rushed off on their own, it was deeply moving. At the same time, many people felt envious of the 36th supermonastery's disciples. Senior apprentice brother Long Chun, we can't endure it any longer. You should continue onwards with the others. Don't bother with us, said one of the ordinary disciples. Long Chun looked back at that person. Don't be so pessimistic. This is not your limit. If you want to become an expert, you have to force yourself to your breaking point. The benefits here surpass your imagination, and if you miss this opportunity, you'll never get it again. You're all people who have drunk and eaten at the same table as me, so don't embarrass me. Keep quiet and follow closely. These people were extremely moved. Long Chun didn't have much of a relationship with them, but to look after them, he had actually given up his chance to compete with the heavenly geniuses. Long Chun was the first to enter the blue zone. As soon as he entered, He felt the tide's strength multiply by 10 times. Following him, the other Dragonblood warriors also entered. Their bodies trembled, but they quickly adapted. That startled the 4 families' experts. Currently, the only ones that had managed to enter the blue zone were Celestials. There had yet to be ordinary disciples who had entered. Even Celestials would feel quite a bit of pressure. But the Dragonblood warriors adapted so quickly. Monastery head Shui, you've really hidden your blade well. Oh? The vice sect master suddenly turned to look at Shui Wuhan. His slight shock became disbelief. Vice sect master overpraises me. Shui Wuhan smiled. From Shui Wuhan's smile, the vice sect master seemed to understand something. He nodded and continued watching. The others were confused by this. What was the meaning behind this strange exchange? But the vice sect master didn't say more, and Shui Wuhan didn't even look at them. They could only mull over this question inside. The 36th Supermonastery's ordinary disciples immediately vomited blood upon entering the blue zone. They felt like their bodies were being torn apart. Don't be afraid. Once you endure this first wave, you'll be able to cultivate here. Longchen paused and had the Dragonblood warriors spread out in order to help these people block the pressure. This pressure was coming from the center of the sea, so they were able to block quite a bit of it. An incense stick's worth of time later, these people finally managed to endure it on their own. The hardest part about entering the blue zone was enduring the first wave. As soon as you entered, the power multiplied, and if you weren't able to bear it, you would be sent flying. If you were careless, then you would follow the tide all the way to the shore and have to start all over. Although these people were now pale and somewhat tottering, they were able to keep themselves stable in this place. They wouldn't be blown back. This place is your current limit. Cultivate here. Brothers, let's keep going. Long Chun waved his hand to the Dragonblood warriors and rushed forward. Tang Waner closely followed Long Chun while holding Meng Qi's hand. As a sole cultivator, Meng Qi's constitution was extremely weak. But Tang Waner was like a fish in water here, and she helped Meng Qi block most of the pressure. Seeing Long Chun rush forward, the Dragonblood warriors also quickened their steps. With Long Chun as the tip, they were like a huge arrow shooting through the sea. The 36th Supermonastery's disciples all jumped in shock upon seeing this speed. To them, this powerful current might blow them away as soon as they were the slightest bit careless. But Long Chun and the others went against the tide as quick as lightning, as if they didn't feel any pressure at all. Even the distant experts were shocked. The fact that Long Chun could go against the tide like this wasn't surprising. After all, they knew he was powerful enough to fight against Zhao Wuji. But other than Meng Qi and Tang Waner, the others were just ordinary Xiantian disciples. How could they also be strong enough to resist such a powerful pressure? This pressure was not just physical pressure. It was a comprehensive pressure composed of multiple facets. It included a pressure to their wills and also a kind of law. That was why they were so shocked. It seems monastery head Shui truly spared no effort to nurture her disciples. You've created such a powerful group, said Zhou Tianyi. He was irritated. His Zhou family had paid such a huge amount of resources to her. Now seeing the Dragonblood warriors display, he immediately connected it to that compensation he had paid. Shui Wuhan smiled indifferently. It's all thanks to family head Zhou. If it weren't for your selfless support, they probably wouldn't be able to advance so quickly. She sneered inside. How did this old fox become so stupid now? Hadn't he just stuck out his face to be slapped? Haha, that's fine. Any supermonastery's disciple should get resources. It's just that I've heard that these people have called themselves the Dragonblood Legion and only listen to Long Chun. After enjoying everything the Shentian Dao sect has given them, they actually want to form a private group and separate from the sect. Don't you think that's going a bit too far? Zhou Tianyi laughed, extremely pleased. Shui Wuhan's expression changed. Old foxes truly were wily. All of their words contained traps. He had intentionally brought up this matter in front of the vice sect master. According to reason, the Shentian Dao sect's disciples all had to listen to the sect's orders. It was not permitted to create private powers. Now Shui Wuhan had no reply, but it was vice sect master who suddenly said, I've previously said that the matters of the junior generation are things us old fellows shouldn't interfere in. Zhou Tianyi, has your memory degenerated from old age? His expression was somewhat dark, and his tone was extremely discourteous. Zhou Tianyi was immediately stuck in a hard position, unable to reply. Private groups? Your Shui, Zhou, Chu, and Wang families all control 9 supermonasteries. Don't those count as private groups? Should I tell the sect master that you want me to disband your 4 families? The vice sect master's voice was icy. Zhou Tianyi was dumbfounded. How was the vice sect master so rude to him today? This was clearly a slap in the face. I've never said anything about your 4 families' open and hidden fights. Because of that, did you really think I'm an idiot and didn't see any of it? Struggle is an important aspect of a sect's development. Of course, it's impossible to guarantee that all struggles will have a positive effect. So as long as your little fights didn't affect the Shen Dao sect's development, no one was bored enough to say anything to you. But Zhou Tianyi, I'm sure you're the most aware of what you've done. Although that matter has passed, it doesn't mean it didn't happen. If you dare to try something like that again, I guarantee I will be the first to bring my blade down on your Zhou family. Understood. The vice sect master's final words caused Zhou Tianyi to tremble. He and the other family heads were shocked. They had always thought that their fights had remained hidden from the higher-ups. However, it wasn't that they didn't know. In fact, they were probably even clearer about what was going on than them. The truth was that they simply couldn't be bothered with them. But if they really ended up causing damage to the Shen Dao sect, then the merciless butcher's knife would immediately fall. Shui Wuhan hadn't expected that the vice sect master would defend her so much today. She couldn't help sighing inside. If people wanted the authority to speak, then they truly did need power. She knew that the vice sect master was looking after her because he had sensed the change in her. After all, he was a foundation forging expert. This was the importance of power. Compared to someone in charge of 9 supermonasteries, a foundation forging expert was even more important. An administrator could be replaced with any somewhat powerful family. But a foundation forging expert was too hard to come by. It was laughable how these people spent all day scheming against each other. Even when they were sleeping, they were pondering the best way to suppress their opponents. They had forgotten their status. A martial cultivator had to focus on getting stronger. In front of absolute strength, any schemes were useless. How fast? Long Chen's about to reach the red zone, said one of the Shui family's monastery heads. Everyone looked over. While they had been talking, Long Chen had already led his people to the border of the red zone. By now, there were quite a few outstanding disciples who had managed to enter the blue zone. But currently, only celestials had managed to enter the red zone. No matter how outstanding the disciple, no matter how great their talent, no matter how high their cultivation base, all the non-celestials were stuck outside the red zone. Some unconvinced people had tried charging in, but as a result, they had been sent flying by the terrifying tide. They had been like shooting stars and directly blown to the furthest edge of the sea. They hadn't even been able to stop midway, and had been injured. Even in the blue zone, the tide grew stronger as you advanced. At the border of the red zone, the pressure of the tide was tens of times greater than where they had entered the blue zone. Even the powerful dragon-blood warriors were somewhat unable to endure it. They felt like their bones were about to be crushed. Stay here. I'll test it. Long Chen took the final step into the red zone. As soon as he did, a terrifying pressure caused his foot to sink. He felt like he was pressing into a spring, and that spring was about to shoot him back. Furthermore, a powerful force descended from above. It was like a mountain had smashed into him. Humph! Long Chen snorted and his spiritual yuan circulated. Resisting these 2 different forces, he immediately felt much more relaxed. These forces were too strange. Most likely, the people who had tried barging in hadn't even understood what was happening before being blown back. Only celestials could rely on the energy of their heavenly Dao runes to resist the first impact. Long Chen looked forward and saw 27 celestials. They were only a few miles ahead. They had long since entered the deeper part of the red zone where the pressure had grown to a terrifying point. However, they found out that the greater the pressure, the greater the benefits would be. Whether it was the tempering of their physical bodies, the comprehension of their elemental attributes, or the increase in their realms, the effect would multiply. So everyone was doing their best to charge as deep into the sea as possible. At the front of these celestials, Long Chun saw 4 figures. Those were the so-called 4 heavenly geniuses. Currently, they had already reached the border of the core violet zone where a huge whirlpool could be seen. The 4 of them had all paused at the border. Most likely, they felt the pressure was too great, and it would be too difficult to enter without adjusting themselves first. Long Chun returned to the blue zone. He said, "When you enter the red zone, you will encounter 2 different kinds of forces. The pressure will multiply by around 15 to 17 times. The Dragon Blood warriors' expressions all changed. They already felt that the pressure here was their limit. If it immediately increased by over 10 times, wouldn't they be crushed flat? Don't worry, you won't die. But once you enter, you'll probably be sent into a half-dead state. However, it'll all be worth it. The bitterness you suffer now is so you can survive on the battlefields in the future. It's so you can protect the things in your heart. I could directly pull you in with my power, but I won't do that. You'll have to enter on your own. This isn't just a competition of force, but a competition against your own will. I could help you once, but I won't be able to help you for a lifetime. You'll have to rely on yourselves. So brothers, think about your motivation. On the battlefield, if you see your brothers die to the enemy's merciless blades, will you feel regret? Regret that you weren't strong enough? If you would, then don't hesitate now. Grab hold of this chance to carve out all your potential and advance into the red zone," said Long Chun. The Dragon Blood warriors looked at each other. A heaven-shaking battle intent soared out of them. They were people who had slaughtered out a path of blood with Long Chun. In the first righteous and corrupt battle they had experienced, many of those brothers that had eaten, drunk, and laughed with them had fallen one by one. Some had died right beside them while they had been powerless to save them. When they thought back about it now, it felt like it had only happened yesterday. So just a few words from Long Chun immediately brought out all their thirst. They thirsted for power. Only with power could they protect the things most important to them. Guyang was the first to charge into the red zone. He had only just entered when he let out a furious roar and his ancestral mark lit upon his forehead. His fierce aura erupted. He wasn't blown back. The distant spectators all let out a startled cry. When Guyang entered the red zone, his entire body shuddered as if he were on the verge of collapse. But he still managed to bear it in the end. This startled the spectators. Previously, quite a few experts had tried charging into the red zone. But anyone who was not a celestial had been blown back, and many had even suffered heavy injuries. It had to be known that those who had dared to attempt entering the red zone were amongst the strongest Xiantian disciples here. Although they might not compare to celestials, they were outstanding elites. Even they had failed, which had caused many people to give up. They all formed an assumption that only celestials could enter the red zone. But Guyang had used his actions to prove them wrong. Following Guyang, Yu Zifeng also entered. His aura seemed like an unsheathed sword that stabbed into the tide. He actually seemed even more relaxed than Guyang. A sword cultivator? Not bad. The vice sect master nodded with praise. He saw that Yu Zifeng had reached a profound comprehension of the sword Tao. Following the 2 of them, Li Qi also entered. But he had only just entered when he coughed up blood. The 2 different forces were extremely difficult to deal with. One pushed you back while the other pushed you down. He felt like his body was being twisted, and he suffered an injury. But although he appeared extremely miserable, after tottering several times, he still managed to endure it. He wasn't forced out. The last one was Song Mingyuan. Song Mingyuan's cultivation base was around the same as Li Qi. He also coughed up blood, and he just narrowly managed to endure it. Once the 4 of them entered, everyone's gazes fell on Guoran. Guoran immediately felt a chill. His physical body wasn't strong. It wasn't even on the same level as an ordinary Dragon Blood warrior. This could be fatal to him. "Boss! Don't spout nonsense. Hurry up. The worst case is you'll fly out and come back, said Longchen impatiently. This little fellow always liked to act slippery. But now wasn't the time. Fine. I'm going, boss. Guoran looked at Longchen tender-heartedly. That scene gave Mengqi and Tang Wan'er goosebumps. Go in peace, sighed Longchen with a mournful expression. I'm not dying. Why are you jinxing me? If you stall any longer, I'll kick you inside. Hurry up. Guoran took a deep breath. Clenching his teeth, he took a few steps and then fiercely jumped into the red zone. The spectators let out startled cries. Was he an idiot? If a person's feet left the ground, how would they be able to stabilize themselves? Wouldn't he be immediately blown out? Guoran immediately vomited 3 mouthfuls of blood. But he actually managed to stay in the red zone. He wasn't blown back. Everyone was dumbfounded. This didn't make any sense. Even the 4 families' experts were stunned. But when they looked at Guoran's feet, they came to a sudden comprehension. At some point, Guoran had put on large metallic boots. He had relied on the weight of the boots to keep himself steady. Of course, these people were unaware that these were part of his armor. Furthermore, it wasn't just their weight that was shocking. There were hidden mechanisms at the bottom of the boots to keep him stuck to the ground. Otherwise, just the weight of the boots wouldn't be able to keep him standing here. All right, we'll line up to block the pressure a bit. Gu Yong and the other 4 lined up so that it would be a bit easier for the others. This red zone was too terrifying. Even Gu Yong and the others were at their limit. Perhaps only a few others would be able to endure it if no one helped them. Now, the 5 of them were not only helping the Dragonblood warriors share their burden, they were also encouraging them, as well as telling them that they weren't fighting alone. They had everyone to help them. One Dragonblood warrior tried to enter the red zone. He immediately vomited blood, but with a furious roar, he erupted with his full strength, fighting against the pressure. He tottered back and forth, but in the end, with a supreme effort, he managed to endure it. The strongest impact was when you entered a new zone. Once you managed to endure it, you would rapidly adapt. Seeing him succeed, the others were filled with confidence, and they tried it. But not every person succeeded. Some were blown back. Longchen had long since been prepared, and he immediately caught them. He had them rest before trying again. With Longchen present, they didn't need to worry about being blown back to the outer zone. Without that worry, they could go all out in their attempt to enter the red zone. This was a very miserable trial. Each person who tried to enter the red zone paid a heavy price. They would definitely vomit blood, and in the struggle, some people's legs even broke directly. Later, they relied on crawling with their arms to advance. The tenacious will they displayed shook all the experts watching. They were absolutely ruthless to themselves. Without going through pain and suffering, one cannot achieve success. This doesn't just apply to ordinary mortals, but also cultivators. Although the effort you put in isn't always directly proportional to your gains, if 2 people were of the same talent and luck, the one who puts in the most effort will obtain the most. In order to increase your odds by just a bit, you have to put in 10 times the effort of others. This is what it means to have resolve, said the vice sect master. The 4 families' experts all nodded. The majority of them were on the level of monastery heads and had high statuses. But they had rarely seen disciples as determined as the Dragonblood warriors. Each one of these 300 people had such perseverance and refused to accept defeat. One of the Dragonblood warriors had even failed 17 times. It was unknown how many times his bones broke. Blood had dyed his body, but he refused to accept help. On his 18th try, relying on his own strength, he managed to succeed. As a result, after 6 hours, all the Dragonblood warriors managed to enter the red zone. Although it was just the edge, the other disciples all felt a profound veneration for them. If their positions were switched, they wouldn't have had that kind of perseverance. And even if they did, they wouldn't have this kind of resolve. This was a conviction that they would definitely succeed. This conviction was in themselves. Although they suffered failure after failure, they still believed in themselves. They believed that they could definitely charge through. This kind of belief was especially important to a martial cultivator. What a lesson, sighed one of the monastery heads. compared to the Dragonblood warriors, they found that their own disciples were lacking that kind of will and resolve. In comparison, their disciples were like greenhouse flowers. Shui Wuhan said, from the 108th monastery, starting with the righteous and corrupt battle, they slaughtered out their own path with Long Chun. They have crawled out from mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Each one of them is hot-blooded. When they were framed and their sect leader was captured, Long Chun charged into the first monastery on his own. At that time, these people were nothing more than rookies, despite knowing their enemies were strong. So strong that even their sect leader couldn't resist. They were still willing to follow Long Chun into death. The feelings between them can withstand any trials. As long as Long Chun ordered it, they would follow him to their deaths. In the same way, if any of them were in danger, Long Chun would sacrifice his own life to save them. Although they are young, they understand the true meaning of cultivation. Hearing Shui Wuhan's words, everyone was deeply moved. They recalled how their blood used to burn with passion when they were young. But at some unknown point, that hot blood and their fearlessness had faded. All day, all they did was scheme against each other. They were lost in thought. Only Zhou Tiany's expression was ugly. To him, Shui Wuhan's words were antagonistic, because the matter from back then had been related to his Zhou family. It was a result of the battle between the Zhou and Shui families. But her words made it seem like all the fault lay with the Zhou family when it had clearly been a competition between the two. How could she set up the Zhou family as the villain? But he couldn't say anything. After all, she hadn't directly accused his Zhou family. So he couldn't explain, because then the vice sect master's impression of the Zhou family would worsen further. Zhou Wuji has entered the core zone, exclaimed a monastery head suddenly. Everyone hastily turned to see Zhou Wuji surrounded by runes. He had charged into the violet storm zone. When he entered, he crouched slightly, his legs trembling. It was obvious he was enduring a terrifying pressure right now. That child Wuji truly has grown up. It's been many generations of this trial since our super monasteries have given rise to a disciple who could enter the storm zone. Zhou Tiany could not conceal his pride. Shui Guanji is also moving. Oh, all of them are. It wasn't just Shui Guanji. Yu Qianshan and Zhong Wuyan had also entered the storm zone. Shui Guanji's body was releasing waves of runes. Yu Qianshan seemed to be enveloped by a huge sword image. And a blood-red mark had appeared on Zhong Wuyan's forehead, one that released a power that disrupted the flow of the violet storm zone. Seeing those four fighting against the storm zone, the vice sect master smiled with gratification. Then his gaze turned to the Dragonblood Legion. They were currently standing on the edge of the red zone, calmly cultivating. This was their current limit. Suddenly, over 10 new figures appeared in the red zone. These were ordinary disciples who had been influenced by the Dragonblood warriors and charged in, using their own resolve as proof of their existence. As for Long Chun, he was currently moving deeper into the red zone with Meng Qi and Tang Waner. Long Chun, you should continue on your own. Meng Qi has already reached her limit. I'll accompany her here, said Tang Waner. Meng Qi couldn't advance any further, while Tang Waner had to look after her. Without Tang Waner, Meng Qi wouldn't have even been able to enter the red zone. Beast tamers were just too physically weak. All right, Long Chun nodded. Leaving them in the middle of the red zone, he rushed off to the storm zone. Light was racing across Long Chen's arms as Hualong and Lei Long were already about to rush off without him. Everyone's attention was drawn to Long Chun. That was especially true of the Celestials who were also in the red zone. It doesn't seem like he finds it difficult at all. Is he really planning on entering the storm zone? Up to now, only the 4 heavenly geniuses had entered the storm zone. But it seemed Long Chun really was planning on joining them. Long Chun quickly bypassed Celestial after Celestial. Seeing him walk past them, they were shocked. What kind of monster was he? Does he really have the same level of strength as the 4 heavenly geniuses? This was the question on everyone's mind. Those 4 were unrivaled second-rank Celestials, while Long Chun wasn't even a Celestial. In truth, Long Chun also felt a great deal of pressure. When he got close to the storm zone, he was forced to slow down because the pressure here was too great. He was less than a mile from the storm zone, but this mile was too terrifying. The pressure would double every 30 meters. Even Long Chun felt like his blood was churning within him, but he also felt the tide constantly strengthening his physical body. However, this strengthening was too slow. Perhaps the other Celestials felt that their physical bodies were rapidly advancing, but Long Chen's body had already reached a terrifying level. He didn't particularly care about this level of strengthening. He had the 9-star Hegemon body art. As long as he condensed the 4th star, his physical strength would immediately multiply. How could he care about this little bit? His target was the storm zone. That was where the purest energy of the Shantian Sea was located. He knew this for sure because Hualong and Lei Long were both expressing their desires to him loudly and repeatedly. There was something in the storm zone that they wanted. Hualong was especially agitated. It seemed like a monster that had been starving for tens of thousands of years and was now seeing meat before it. Practically went crazy. As Long Chun advanced, the current began to rumble. The storm zone was right in front of him. Long Chun felt extremely uncomfortable with the intense pressure here. Taking a deep breath, his spiritual yuan began to surge. His aura erupted to fight against the current. If he still didn't do this, then just his physical body would be unable to endure it. At this moment, everyone's gazes were on him. They wanted to see whether he truly had the ability to challenge the storm zone. Long Chin had stopped. He was adjusting his aura. Previously, the 4 heavenly geniuses had also adjusted themselves for an incense stick's worth of time. Shui Wuhan was nervous. Long Chun had always been her greatest pride, but even she didn't know how powerful he really was. The fact that he wanted to compete with the 4 heavenly geniuses made her worry. If he failed, she would become a laughingstock. Boom! Suddenly, the Shantian Sea shook slightly. Long Chun had merely paused for a few breaths before taking a step into the storm zone. He's crazy! The spectators were appalled. Even the 4 heavenly geniuses had had to summon their manifestations to enter the storm zone. But Long Chun was merely circulating his spiritual yuan. That was the simplest, most ordinary defense possible. In front of the storm zone, he would immediately be blown back. The violet storm zone was like a hurricane. Loud rumbling filled Long Chen's ears. Long Chen's body suddenly trembled, and it felt like he had been smashed by countless hammers. His blood churned, and he vomited a mouthful of blood. Long Chun was surprised to see that his shoulder had dislocated because of the tearing force here. This storm seemed like wind but also not like wind. It seemed like water but was not water. It contained every single kind of energy found within heaven and earth. But Long Chun found that all those various energies contained a berserk, destructive force along with a powerful nourishing force. When he recovered from his injuries, he sensed that the energy here was of great assistance, and it saved him a great deal of life energy from the primal chaos space when he healed. How mysterious! Long Chun sighed inside. The Shantian Sea was absolutely inexplicable. While Long Chun was surprised, the outside world had practically gone crazy. Long Chun had actually charged his way through. Although he was a bit miserable at the start and had suffered an injury, he had completely adapted in just a few breaths. That was too monstrous. Shui Wuhan finally relaxed. At the same time, she was also shocked. What a powerful physical body. The vice sect master couldn't help being moved. It was his first time seeing such a physical body. He was a foundation forging expert, and he could tell that Long Chun wasn't relying on any technique. His physical body was not backed by something like Zhao Wuji's earth energy. The 4 family heads were also shocked. They had heard Long Chun was a monster and powerful, but they hadn't really taken it to heart. No matter how strong he was, how could he compare to a rank 2 celestial? But now he had forced his way into the storm zone. That was especially shocking to Zhou Tianyi and Shui Yunsong. The former regretted not caring enough about him before. Such a person had to either be drawn to their side or stealthily killed. Now, the Shui family had 2 peerless geniuses. The situation was not good for his Zhou family. As for Shui Yunsong, he also regretted not listening when Shui Wuhan told him Long Chun was a peerless genius and should be given the same treatment as Shui Guanji. Instead of listening, he had treated him as a game piece to use against the Zhou family. Now that Long Chun had displayed such power, he didn't know what to do. Furthermore, Shui Yunsong suddenly thought of a certain something, and his expression twitched. But there was nothing he could do now. Long Chun stood in the storm zone for a full incense stick's worth of time before gradually coming to an understanding of the rules here. Then he began to slowly advance. The pressure here was so immense, even steel would be instantly crushed. Long Chun could only advance step by step. He quickly saw 4 figures in front of him. The 4 of them were in a row and maintaining a distance of around a mile from each other as they slowly advanced toward the center. Long Chun was right in the middle of the 4. Zhao Wuji was the one furthest to the left, while the one furthest to the right was carrying a sword on his back. Because it was his back facing him, Long Chun couldn't see his face, but he knew it had to be the sword cultivator, Yu Qianshan. Of the 2 in the middle, the lithe figure was most definitely Zhong Wuyan, while the other had long hair that fell loosely on his back. He had to be the Shui family's genius, Shui Guanji. Long Chun frowned slightly. His position was rather awkward, but if he were to detour around them with this snail-like pace, it would waste too much time. Furthermore, he wanted to charge to the very center of the sea, so he had to pass by 2 of them. The 2 most suited for him to pass were Zhong Wuyan and Shui Guanji. There was a mile between them, which was enough to safely pass through. The 4 of them had also noticed Long Chun, and they were extremely shocked. The most shocking fact was that after entering the storm zone, he had reached their current position even faster than them. In less than a few hours, Long Chun was less than half a mile away. He would quickly be standing shoulder to shoulder with them. Now that he got closer, he saw their faces. Everything about Yu Qianshan was sword-like. His eyebrows were sword-like, and his gaze seemed like 2 sharp blades. That gaze contained the specific arrogance of a sword cultivator. On the other hand, Shui Guanji was more handsome, but he was a bit too handsome, making him appear almost feminine. Long Chun disliked his appearance a great deal. He quickly realized the reason. He looked a bit similar to Marquis Ying. Just at this moment, Shui Guanji turned toward Long Chun and shook his head. Scram. You don't have the qualifications to be here. Alarm bells suddenly rang in Long Chun's heart, but it was too late. An invisible fluctuation struck him. Within the current, it was practically impossible to sense a transparent fist. By the time Long Chun noticed it, he had been struck. He felt like a huge hammer had smashed into him. He pierced straight through the red, blue, and white zones like a shooting star. When he crashed into the edge of the basin, the entire land trembled slightly. Shui Wuhan shot up, her expression dark. Did you set this up? How brazen, Shui Wuhan. Don't be so rude to the family head. Another expert from the Shui family immediately retorted. Shui Yunsong glanced at Shui Wuhan. The matters of youngsters should be resolved by the youngsters. As the monastery head, do you not even possess that resolve? Shui Wuhan trembled from rage. She knew that Shui Yunsong had set this up in order to punish her for going against the family. He was trying to force her to lower her head. Good. Ha ha ha. Good. These are your own words. Don't regret it. Shui Wuhan sat back down. Long Chun miserably crawled up. He wiped away the blood from his mouth, and a smile appeared on his face. That smile was chilling to the bone. Seeing that Long Chun had been plotted against, the Dragonblood warriors were enraged. They all took out their weapons, about to charge their way into the storm zone. Don't cause trouble, shouted Guyang. It's already hard enough for us to be here. You won't even advance a few miles before being blown back. As for the storm zone, you won't be able to enter. Acting like this is just inviting humiliation. Then what are we supposed to do? Raged a Dragonblood warrior. You guys really? As your cultivation bases grew, it seems your brains have become dumber. Do you think boss is someone who will suffer without retaliating? Just obediently cultivate and wait to watch the show. Remember, boss is unrivaled, said Guaran. Long Chun had already charged back into the white zone. What shocked everyone was that he was practically a bolt of lightning. Heavens, that's way too fast. The disciples in the trial watched as Long Chun sped by. This speed was even greater than the 4 heavenly geniuses when they had charged forward. He was out of the white zone in just a few breaths. Even in the blue zone, his speed didn't decrease. He directly pierced through to the red zone. Upon reaching there, Long Chun let out a furious roar, and his aura erupted. Space trembled, but Long Chun's speed still didn't decrease. He was like a flying arrow, and he even became faster. Boom! Long Chun used the most direct, most barbaric method to barge right into the storm zone. This was too ruthless. He didn't even give himself time to breathe or adjust. The spectators were dumbfounded. Of course, this included Shui Yunsong. He had a bad premonition. The 4 families' experts could all tell that Long Chen's current mood wasn't good. Since Shui Guanji had plotted against him, it seemed he wasn't willing to be struck without striking him back. Only Shui Wuhan's expression was calm. She knew Long Chun was completely infuriated. With his previous experience, Long Chun merely trembled slightly upon entering the storm zone. He took half a step back. This half step was truly excellent. Originally, when you entered a new zone, there would be a powerful impact force. But now, the impact striking him had dropped 30 to 40%, so he wasn't injured. Then, with a cold snort, he began moving toward Shui Guanji. Although his speed wasn't fast anymore, in less than 2 hours, he was less than a mile from him. Shui Guanji once more turned back with a disdainful expression. "This isn't a place you can stay. But since you are so obstinate, I can only help you scram again." A large fist suddenly condensed in the air and shot toward Long Chun. This time, Long Chun managed to see it. Shui Guanji was truly a sinister person. He might have turned his head back, but he didn't turn the rest of his body. He had actually been forming hand seals in front of him to secretly set up an attack. That was how Long Chun had been struck last time. Furthermore, Long Chun was at a disadvantage. With the tide's power behind him, Shui Guanji's attack was much stronger. His power was increased by the current, while Long Chun was forcing his way through the current. Of course, he would be the one to suffer. Suddenly, a saber appeared in Long Chun's hands. That was an enchanted item he had obtained from someone else's hands. His blood drinker was still crazily absorbing the Phoenix Blood Black Gold's energy to heal itself. Long Chun didn't want to disturb it. Saber Chi soared into the sky. With a slash of his saber, the fist was cleanly cut in half. Furthermore, the leftover power continued toward Shui Guanji. Shui Guanji hadn't expected Long Chun to be so strong. His hand seal suddenly changed, and a curtain of water appeared in the air. Long Chun's saber image landed on the curtain of water. The water curtain trembled a few times, but it still completely dispelled Long Chun's attack. "Fuck off!" Suddenly a cold shout rang out. Long Chun had already crossed the mile that had separated them. Holding his saber with both hands, he mercilessly slashed it down. Long Chun's previous attack hadn't just split apart Shui Guanji's attack, but it had also cut a channel in front of him, one that greatly reduced the pressure of the current. He had taken advantage of that to charge right up to Shui Guanji. This time, his attack was even stronger. His saber caused a spatial tearing sound that caused Shui Guanji's expression to change. Sky-water shield. Shui Guanji hastily formed a hand seal, and runic energy formed a 3-meter-wide shield in front of him. This shield was condensed from countless water element runes. It appeared as if it was made of water. Boom! Powerful chi waves erupted. Zhong Wuyan and Yu Qianshan frowned. They were affected by the shock waves. The two of them slowly moved further away. Although they weren't afraid, that didn't mean they would stupidly waste such a good cultivation opportunity. As for Zhao Wuji, he sneered. This was the best possible show for him. He represented the Zhou family, while Shui Guanji represented the Shui family. The two families were like fire and water. He had exchanged blows with Shui Guanji many times, but it had always ended up in a draw. Shui Guanji's water element cultivation technique was too abnormal, and it restricted him. He was an earth element expert. Shui Guanji's water technique might not specialize in offense, but it was unrivaled when it came to softness and flexibility. Each time Zhao Wuji's fists tried to hit him, it would be like hitting cotton. The feeling of his fists landing on nothing was so irritating that it almost made him puke. Shui Guanji rarely fought head-on with others. He used his endless water magical arts to exhaust his opponents to death. So Zhao Wuji hated fighting him the most. Long Chen's saber landed on Shui Guanji's water shield. He found that this water shield was constantly rippling. Each time it rippled, it erased part of his power. It was extremely strange. The two of them were deadlocked for a moment. Shui Guanji sneered. "You're just a country bumpkin and have no qualifications to be here. You should leave while you still can. Stay in the red zone." Shui Guanji had long since heard of Long Chun, but he had never taken him seriously. He considered him nothing more than a slightly strong bumpkin who had come from the mountains. He and the other rank 2 Celestials had all been found to have an innate Dao mark by the time they were 5 years old. They were innate rank 2 Celestials. There were 2 kinds of rank 2 Celestials. One kind had advanced from the first rank. But that was extremely difficult. For example, Yin Wushang had been a powerful figure amongst rank 1 Celestials. If he could have perfectly merged his true body with his clone, then he would have had at least a 30% chance of becoming a rank 2 Celestial. Not all Celestials would have a chance of advancing. It would depend on their heavenly Dao runes, as well as their talent. The most important thing was that it required an ocean's worth of resources. Amongst 100 rank 1 Celestials, less than 1 might advance to the second rank. Most rank 2 Celestials were innate. They simply had to awaken their heavenly Dao runes. That was what made Shui Guanji, Zhao Wuji, Zhong Wuyan, and Yu Qianshan's supreme existences in the Shen-Tian Dao sect. Their arrogance was natural. They didn't place any rank 1 Celestials in their eyes, let alone Long Chun, who wasn't even a Celestial. Long Chun really has struck an iron board. Shui Guanji has never been defeated by someone in the same realm. His water magical arts are something even late sea expansion experts are helpless against, sneered one of the Shui family's experts. A rank 2 Celestial's heavenly Dao runes could help them activate magical arts. Through training, they would be able to unleash incredible power. Rank 2 Celestials could truly dominate the sea expansion realm. But rank 1 Xiantian Celestials were only able to fight the early sea expansion realm. Amongst rank 1 Celestials, 99% of them didn't have any attributes. So the only thing they could depend on was their heavenly Dao manifestations. But rank 2 Celestials were blessed by the heavenly Daos and had higher chances of having an affinity with an element. That created a huge chasm between rank 1 and rank 2 Celestials. So no matter how monstrous Long Chun was, no matter how heaven-defying he was, no one had a favorable opinion of his chances against a rank 2 Celestial. Shui Yunsong smiled. Shui Guanji was a descendant of the Shui family, and that was much more dependable than an outsider. Just having Shui Guanji in the Shui family was enough. As for Long Chun, he would at most be fit to be Shui Guanji's servant. Of course, if Long Chun was willing to be Shui Guanji's servant, he definitely wouldn't mistreat him. But if Long Chun wasn't willing, then there was no way around it. Shui Guanji would ruthlessly suppress him. The sky did not have 2 suns. The people didn't have 2 masters. A family couldn't contain 2 pinnacle figures. One had to suppress the other. Shui Yunsong glanced at Shui Wuhan, but seeing her cold smile made him furious. Shui Wuhan was becoming more and more unreliable. Since that was the case, then he would just allow Shui Guanji to properly beat Long Chun up. As for Zhou Tianyi, his expression was calm, but he was laughing with delight inside. He had never expected that he wouldn't even need Zhao Wuji to do anything. The Shui family's own people were helping him out. Zhou Tianyi hated Long Chun to the core. He hated him so much that he wished Long Chun would die in the trial. It was because of him that his Zhou family had lost so miserably. The vice sect master frowned slightly. He was unable to understand what Long Chun was doing. He was clearly exceedingly powerful, but he still refused to release that power. Were all the youngsters these days so low-key? In front of me you are just an ant. You are helpless against me. Shui Guanji continued to block Long Chun's saber. Although Long Chun was constantly increasing his power, His water shield was dispelling it at the same time. Long Chun was just wasting his time. He was unable to threaten him. Is that so? Then I want to see whether or not I can threaten you. Long Chun suddenly smiled. His saber fiercely cut down. What flabbergasted everyone was that Shui Guanji's incomparably tenacious shield was directly cut apart. Shui Guanji was dumbfounded. This was something that had never happened before. But before he could react, a hand came from a strange angle. It made an intimate connection with his handsome face. Pow! When Long Chen's hand slapped against Shui Guanji's face, it was like it also slapped against everyone's hearts. Time seemed to come to a stop. The Dragonblood warriors, the 36 supermonastery's disciples, the Shentian Dao sex people, Zhao Wuji, Zhong Wuyan, Yu Chenshan, and the 4 families were all stunned. Pow! Shui Guanji was like a shooting star. When Long Chen's strength was added to the power of the current, he immediately pierced through the Shentian Sea and slammed into the basin. People didn't know if it was a coincidence or not, but Shui Guanji slammed into the exact same place as Long Chun. However, Shui Guanji appeared even more miserable, and he slammed a huge hole into the rock that had been compressed by countless years of these waves. Shui Guanji coughed up a mouthful of blood and crawled up from the ground. People saw an extremely clear handprint on his face. Although Shui Guanji quickly circulated his spiritual yuan and that mark faded, that image was forever imprinted in their hearts. A grand rank 2 celestial had actually been slapped in the face. They then turned to look back into the storm zone. Long Chen's saber was resting on his shoulder. He appeared like a domineering god. The shockwaves from Long Chen's slap shook their hearts. Zhong Wuyan had never imagined that Long Chun, who usually didn't reveal any power, was actually this terrifying. The 4 heavenly geniuses had exchanged blows before, but it hadn't been a life and death battle, and so they hadn't determined a winner. But whether it was Zhong Wuyan, Zhao Wuji, or Yu Chenshan, none of them liked to battle Shui Guanji. That was because Shui Guanji's water magical arts were too irritating. They came one after another, endless and boundless. Their techniques were unable to display their true power in front of him. Furthermore, Shui Guanji had abnormally deep reserves of spiritual yuan. If they tried to fight a battle of attrition, none of them would be able to exhaust him. Furthermore, his defense was perfect, practically impenetrable. But Long Chun had broken that perfect defense with a single slash of his saber. That was the most shocking part of it. Having exchanged blows with Shui Guanji, they were aware of how strong that shield was. It would constantly dissipate other people's power, making them helpless. They were unable to understand how Long Chun had done this. Just now, they hadn't seen him release any great power. It had happened too suddenly. This Long Chun has gone too far. This is just humiliating others. Shui Yunsong's expression was incomparably ugly now. Too far? Humiliating? How come you didn't think that Shui Guanji's sneak attack against Long Chun was going too far or humiliating? Sneered Shui Wuhan. After a win, you laugh so happily, but after a loss you have to curse others? Brother Yunsong, don't lose face. After all, whether it's Shui Guanji or Long Chun, they're both on the side of your Shui family. They're both equally valuable. Even if you're biased, you shouldn't make it so obvious, advised Zhou Tianyi with a smile. Although he knew Zhou Tianyi's words were trying to infuriate him, Shui Yunsong's fury still almost burst out of control. Long Chen's slap hadn't just been a slap in the face of Shui Guanji, but it had also been a slap in the face of the entire Shui family. This Long Chen really is strange. How did he do this? How did he break Shui Guanji's defense? At this time, the Wang family head finally couldn't help opening his mouth. He wasn't interested in their verbal warfare. But Long Chen's attack did make him very curious. When he said this, he looked toward the vice sect master, hoping he could answer him. The vice sect master didn't disappoint him. I'm also not sure if he took advantage of the opening in Guanji's defense or not. But if Long Chun really did do it on purpose, then his ability to see through his enemies is truly terrifying. Opening in his defense. How could there be a gap in Shui Guanji's water magical arts? Shui Yunsong didn't believe it. The vice sect master couldn't be bothered to even look at him. He coldly said, "There is nothing in this world that is perfect. If something was truly perfect, all that represents is extinction. Magical arts are the same, and no matter how strong the magical art, it must have a weak point. Just because you don't know about it doesn't mean it doesn't exist." "Please give me pointers, vice sect master," asked Shui Wuhan respectfully. To tell the truth, she also wanted to know very much. The vice sect master looked at the distant Longchen. "There is a saying that wind cannot exist without motion, and water is constantly flowing. The essence of water magical arts is that constant change. The wheel turns in an unending cycle. No matter what form the outer shape of the magical art takes, it must be in motion on the inside. As those runes flow, they cancel out the opponent's attack power. It's most definitely a very powerful ability. When fighting with water cultivators, if you try to fight a battle of attrition, you'll essentially be asking to be defeated. Water attribute experts have profound reserves of spiritual yuan. Even if the two sides have the same amount of spiritual yuan, the water cultivator will be able to use this method to exhaust their opponent's energy. So when their opponent is out of spiritual yuan, the water cultivator will still have at least 20% of theirs left. To sum up, a water cultivator's strongest point is their defense, not offense. But again, whether it is offense or defense, Shui Guanji's water magical arts are in constant motion. That is his strongest point, and also where his weakness lies. What? The vice sect master continued. Since it's in motion, there are waves. And where there are waves, there must be times of high and low, a time where strong and weak superimpose. Then you mean, these experts now understood. Yes, Long Chun used his power to figure out the fluctuations of Shui Guanji's power, and when his power was at its weakest, he struck. That was what brought on this result. But as a rank 2 celestial, Shui Guanji's water energy is incomparably pure. Hundreds of fluctuations occur within his defense with every blink of the eye. But even then, Long Chun was still able to figure out which wave was the weakest out of those hundreds of fluctuations. That is why I called him terrifying. Everyone was shaken. The opening the vice sect master had described wasn't even an opening. Even if someone knew about it, no one could take advantage of it. Furthermore, Long Chun and Shui Guanji had only fought for a few breaths' time. To be able to find the opening during this short time and then take advantage of it, was that something a human could do? Perhaps you don't believe it. In truth, even I don't believe it. Even for me, if I was fighting someone on the same level, I would never be able to so cleanly grasp that kind of opportunity. This would require maintaining an absolutely pure and bright Tao heart in the midst of battle. Perhaps out of everyone here, only Long Chun is capable of doing this, sighed the vice sect master. Is Long Chun really the strong? Asked Shui Yunsong. The strong you're talking about is referring to combat strength. But what I'm referring to is the strength of his heart and will. Those things aren't something that can be raised just by spending resources. It is something forged through walking on the line between life and death over and over again. Perhaps in terms of combat strength, Long Chun might be weaker than some people here. But when it comes to the determination of his heart and the strength of his will, everyone here, including me, is unable to get even close to his level. Everyone was shocked. It was completely unexpected for the vice sect master to have such a high opinion of Long Chun. He actually said that even he was not his equal. That was raising his status a bit too much, wasn't it? The vice sect master continued. Maybe not all of you know this, but yesterday, I went through all the information available about Long Chun. Only then did I come to understand his past. He was just an ordinary child. His talent, his background, the amount of resources he could get, they were all terrible. But all he focused on was getting stronger. He had nothing to gamble with. So in order to get stronger, the only thing he could do was gamble with his life. He created countless miracles on his path by risking his life. Perhaps even the heavens have been convinced by him, and as he got stronger, he managed to grab hold of more opportunities. But remember, opportunities are only obtained by those who have the power to grasp them. The weak are unable to even grab hold of the opportunities they are given. If the weak try to forcibly grasp those opportunities, they'll just end up tossing their lives away. Compared to Long Chun, we lack that bravery to risk our lives. Of course, there's a reason for that. We don't need to risk our lives. We have so much and we can obtain anything that we want. But if Long Chun wants to obtain something, he'll have to put in 10 times, or perhaps even 100 times the effort compared to others. Furthermore, he'll be in danger of losing his life. Such a person doesn't need talent. As long as he wants to live, he'll constantly get stronger. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help being deeply moved and impressed. They had heard of Long Chun, but they had always thought that the only reason he had his current accomplishments was luck. But now their opinions of him completely changed. Many people were lost in thought. Most of the experts here were all stuck in a bottleneck. They had tried attacking a higher realm multiple times, only to fail every time. They had already lost their confidence and drive. Continuously attacking a bottleneck was something that became more dangerous with each attempt. A person could easily be afflicted by a heart devil and die. In their hearts, they were already afraid. They were afraid of death. They were experts and they were reluctant to lose everything they had. But the Vice Sect Master's words were like an alarm bell. Were they really planning on waiting until they reached the end of their lifespans? There were still many people here who were comparatively young. They still had a chance of advancing to a higher realm. However, they had lost the Dao heart that a martial artist required. Shui Guanji's moving. Suddenly a cry rang out. Shui Guanji let out a furious roar, killing intent exploding off of him. He shot forward. He was enraged. This was a kind of humiliation, a kind of completely intolerable humiliation. He wanted to tear Long Chun to pieces. His killing intent was suffocating. Everyone hastily got out of Shui Guanji's way, afraid he would slaughter them. Long Chun. Shui Guanji's heavenly Dao runes suddenly condensed into a pair of huge wings on his back. He charged directly into the storm zone. Fuck off! Shui Guanji had only just taken a step into the storm zone when a huge saber image carried by the current struck him. Boom! Shui Guanji had yet to stabilize himself in the storm zone when he once more shot back like a shooting star. This time, he was even faster than last time because Long Chun had taken advantage of the situation. He had merged the current's power with his saber chi, and he didn't give Shui Guanji any opportunity. Idiot. Let me just say that with me here. Don't even think about getting in. Long Chen's voice resounded throughout the whole region. Everyone's hearts shook. Perhaps Long Chun was about to make Shui Guanji regret his actions. Too contemptible, roared Shui Yunsong. With the storm zone's power backing him, Long Chun had placed himself in an invincible position. Shui Guanji had no chance. Long Chun, you are courting death. Boom! Shui Guanji had just charged into the storm zone when Long Chun once more sent him flying. There was no way around this. The storm zone was already extremely terrifying. Anyone who charged in would encounter an exceedingly terrifying pressure, and it would require their full strength to resist. Long Chun was aware of that, and so he had immediately taken this advantage. When he combined his attacks with the current here, Shui Guanji was powerless. Haha! This water pipe should now understand how amazing our boss is. To have plotted against him, I really admire his courage. Laughed Guoran upon seeing the 7th time Shui Guanji was miserably blown back. The other Dragonblood warriors also couldn't help but clench their fists. Previously, Shui Guanji had targeted Long Chun. It was truly refreshing to see Long Chun suppress him like this. Tang Wan'er and Meng Qi were also watching. Meng Qi shook her head. Shui Guanji really is unlucky. He could have provoked anyone, but he decided to provoke Long Chun. Tang Wan'er hatefully said, he deserves it. Even Zhao Wuji didn't do anything, but he actually sneak attacked him. He should be crushed. On the 7th time, Long Chen's power was even greater, resulting in Shui Guanji vomiting blood. His hair was a complete mess, and his expression was sinister. He seemed like a berserk magical beast. He might be furious, but there was nothing he could do. As long as Long Chun had the terrain advantage and simply defended, none of his abilities would allow him to pass. Vice Sect Master, this matter is no good. If this continues, neither of them will be able to properly cultivate. Shui Yunsong looked toward the Vice Sect Master for help, hoping that he would stop this fight. But the Vice Sect Master merely said, I'm unable to handle your Shui family's internal conflict. All he had to do was make sure they didn't fight to the point of death. Otherwise, they could fight as they pleased. When Shui Guanji had attacked Long Chun, he hadn't said anything. Now that Shui Guanji was suppressed by Long Chun and Shui Yunsong was actually asking the Vice Sect Master to interfere, it truly proved that Shui Yunsong was worthy of being the family head. His face was definitely thick enough. However, the Vice Sect Master didn't want to interfere in their Shui family's affairs. If he had to worry about this kind of minor affair, he would never have a moment of peace to cultivate. Wuhan, are you not going to control your disciple? Shouted Shui Yunsong. Shui Wuhan smiled coldly. The matters of youngsters should be resolved by the youngsters. As the family head, do you not even possess that resolve? These words caused everyone's expressions to become odd. Even a solemn person like the Vice Sect Master had to hold back a smile. These were almost the exact same words Shui Yunsong had said when Shui Guanji had sneak-attacked Long Chun. Even the tone was the same. It was like Shui Wuhan had used Shui Yunsong's hand to slap him. It went without saying that this slap was very vicious. How impudent! Do you not place your family head in your eyes? Roared Shui Yunsong. Let everyone take a step back. Monastery head Shui advised Long Chun to stop. This isn't good for either of them. There's a time limit for the Shentian Sea, and it may disappear at any time. It's not good to mess around all day, said the Vice Sect Master. All right, I'll advise him. But as for whether or not he'll listen, it's not my problem, said Shui Wuhan helplessly. After all, this was the Vice Sect Master's request, and she had to give him this face. Long Chun, don't mess around. There's a time limit to the Shentian Sea, and you have to cherish each moment. Long Chun was currently completely focused on Shui Guanji. He had to admit that Shui Guanji was extremely powerful. The reason he seemed so relaxed was entirely because he was relying on the Storm Zone's power. Now that Shui Wuhan tried to mediate the situation, he immediately understood that someone was forcing her. Currently, the two dragon tattoos on his arms were shining as they went all out, absorbing the energy for themselves. Although it wasn't as good as the energy from deeper within, Long Chun was unable to swallow his anger and thus didn't proceed further. This idiot goes too far with bullying others. I can let him through, but he must give me an apology, shouted Long Chun. You want me to apologize? Keep dreaming. You're the bumpkin idiot, roared Shui Guanji before anyone else could reply. Fine, then we can just continue like this. If you can get past me, then I won't be Long Chun, sneered Long Chun. He was also full of rage. He hadn't provoked this fellow, and all he wanted was an apology. But this Shui Guanji acted as if he was thoroughly wronged. Since that was the case, then they could fight until the end. Just who was afraid of who? Well, I've done all I can. Shui Wuhan shrugged. You aren't even able to control a disciple. What qualifications do you have to be a monastery head? Shouted an expert from the Shui family. That person was precisely the monastery head of the 5th supermonastery, and the one who would eventually succeed in the family head position. Back then, he had invited Shui Wuhan to join his side, but she had refused, which irritated him. Now his authority was growing greater and greater, and he was beginning to push her out. Yes, he is my disciple, but he is not my tool or puppet. He has the right to protect his own dignity. Shui Wuhan's expression sank. You... What sophistry, he raged. Don't fight. Shui Guanji is moving again. Is he? Everyone was startled to see Shui Guanji charge in a different direction this time. Heavens, he wouldn't. Quite a few expressions of disbelief appeared. Shui Guanji was actually rushing toward the Dragonblood Legion. Scram! Shui Guanji roared and a huge blade fell on them. The Dragonblood warriors were alarmed and hastily defended. Boom! A huge wind shield appeared in front of the Dragonblood warriors. But this shield merely lasted for an instant before shattering. As for the Dragonblood warriors, they were knocked back but didn't get sent flying. That was Tang Wan'er's shield. As soon as she had seen Shui Guanji charging over at everyone, she had had a bad feeling and rushed back with Meng Qi. Netherworld Soul Arrow. A translucent arrow filled with endless soul energy shot toward Shui Guanji. A spiritual attack? Shui Guanji's expression changed. Spiritual attacks were the most terrifying attacks. If he was struck, it truly would be troublesome. Buzz! The heavenly Tao runes behind him suddenly transformed into a huge shield. Two kinds of runes were constantly flickering, looking like the eyes of millions of ghouls. It appeared extremely strange. The strange shield blocked Meng Qi's attack. But Shui Guanji felt a burst of pain in his soul. Meng Qi's spiritual attack was too powerful, and a portion of it reached him. Fuck off! Shui Guanji formed a hand seal, and the water qi around him surged. His runes rumbled with them, and a huge water hammer appeared in the air. Get back! Cried Tang Wan'er. She rapidly formed hand seals, summoning all her energy. A huge wind shield formed in front of her, and she retreated along with everyone else. Boom! Her wind shield exploded. Terrifying water energy slammed into them. It felt like a mountain had crashed into them, and they all vomited blood. They were engulfed in a powerful flood and unable to say a word. Shui Guanji's attack blew back Tang Wan'er and the others. They directly slammed into the edge of the basin. But no one cheered for him. They all looked down on him. Unable to defeat Long Chun, he actually released his anger on people from the same sect as him. That wasn't what a true expert should do. Everyone was silent for a moment. Around half of the Dragonblood Legion had fallen unconscious from this attack. After all, that was the attack of a rank 2 Celestial. Seeing the Dragonblood warriors begin to carry their injured brothers to the shore and give them medical care, everyone felt an indescribable feeling inside. Each of the Dragonblood warriors was worthy of respect, but now they had been humiliated like this. Long Chun, since you won't let me cultivate, then none of your 36th Supermonasteries people should think about cultivating either. Shui Guanji completely ignored everyone's gazes. In the storm zone, Long Chen's eyes were icy cold, and his arms suddenly shook. A blue and violet light shot out. Originally, people thought he was preparing some ultimate attack, but those two lights didn't go forward. They went toward the core of the storm zone instead. Long Chen had decided to let Lei Long and Huolong go to the core on their own. He told them to make themselves as small as possible so that they wouldn't be noticed, but it still drew people's suspicions. However, Long Chen didn't care. Shui Guanji, do you have any interest in having a life and death match? Shouted Long Chen from the storm region, shocking everyone. A life and death match? Everyone was shocked. Long Chen wanted to kill? Did he really have the confidence to fight a rank 2 Celestial? Humph, how ignorant! Snorted Shui Yunsong. Yes, truly ignorant. Shui Wuhan nodded. But the same word had a different meaning in her mouth. Shui Wuhan knew that Long Chun was truly furious. He could accept anything, but he couldn't accept others hurting his comrades, especially not when they were someone impossible for them to defeat and when they used such despicable methods. Once that happened, Long Chun would become a completely different person. Do you think you're fit to have a life and death match with me? I won't kill you today, but I'll crush every single one of your bones to dust. Seeing Long Chun walk out of the storm zone, Shui Guanji was delighted. As long as he wasn't in the storm zone, then he didn't have anything to worry about. Long Chun, I'll make you regret provoking me. Shui Guanji suddenly spread his hands. Countless runes appeared in the space between them, forming a huge arrow. The arrow continued to grow, becoming hundreds of meters long. It was formed entirely of his runes, and a terrifying pressure spread that caused the other disciples' expressions to change. This level of attack could instantly kill them. The huge arrow shot toward Long Chun. It wasn't fast, but it caused the void to rumble. This powerful aura had locked down Long Chun. Don't play this kind of senseless game. Bring out your full strength or you'll die. Suddenly, Long Chun completely disappeared. When he reappeared, he was right by Shui Guanji's side, and his saber was slashing at him. What? Everyone was shocked that Long Chun could ignore Shui Guanji's lock and escape this attack. But was Shui Guanji trying to make a joke? If you wanted to lock down your opponent, you either needed stronger spiritual strength or a greater aura than your opponent. He had truly underestimated Long Chun. Despite immediately summoning a water shield and retreating, Shui Guanji was still cut by Long Chun's saber chi. Blood burst from his chest. If he had been any slower, he would have been cleanly cut in two. Long Chun's netherworld ghost steps were too difficult to deal with. As his cultivation base had grown, he discovered just how exquisite this technique was. His speed was too fast, so fast that others couldn't even react. The Celestials were especially horrified. They would be killed without even realizing it. The Vice Sect Master narrowed his eyes upon seeing Long Chun's footwork. He felt it was a bit familiar, but he wasn't sure. Shui Yunsong and the rest of the Shui family all jumped upon seeing Shui Guanji injured. Heavenly Dao recovery. Shui Guanji was also shocked. Just now, he had instinctively shot back upon sensing the danger. If he hadn't, he would have died. Now, he no longer dared to be careless. He directly summoned his true cry of the Heavenly Daos. Previously, he had only activated a portion of his runic power. He had always thought that summoning the cry of the Heavenly Daos would just be elevating Long Chun's status. But now he finally realized that if he continued playing around like this, he might play himself to his grave. Boom! With Shui Guanji at the core, two kinds of Heavenly Dao runes erupted. Space trembled as they interweaved. Even the flow of the current was forced aside by his power. For many people, this was their first time seeing the manifestation of a rank 2 celestial. It was much more terrifying than ordinary celestials. Even from 100 miles away, this pressure made it hard for people to breathe. Are they really going to undergo a heaven-shaking battle? The disciples were filled with anticipation. It was rare to witness a battle on this level. Suddenly, Long Chun began to rush away, instantly disappearing from other people's sights. People were at first astonished that he was running, but then Long Chun said, "Let's switch locations." In order to not disturb others, Long Chun wanted to change the battlefield. That filled these disciples with gratitude. Shui Guanji snorted and followed. Today he was completely infuriated. This was his first time being slapped in the face. Although he couldn't kill Long Chun in front of everyone like this, he could definitely humiliate him as much as he pleased to retrieve his dignity. Now, he no longer even cared that much about the trial. If he didn't defeat Long Chun, he would become the Shintian Dao sect's laughingstock. Don't just stand there. Even if you want to watch the fight, watch from inside, said Long Chun to the Dragonblood Legion. Because he was following the current, he reached the edge of the basin in just a moment. Gu Yang and the others hastily nodded. This trial was an extremely rare opportunity. They had already sensed immense benefits. The people who had been knocked unconscious had awoken, and they once more returned to their original location. With their previous experience, their speed was much faster. By the time they reached their original location, Long Chun and Shui Guanji were already facing each other in the distance. The Vice Sect Master didn't stop them, nor did he have any plans to. For a genius to rise within a sect was a good thing. But if multiple geniuses rose, they would definitely fight. Geniuses were all extremely self-confident. They only wanted to recognize themselves as geniuses. Each of them wanted to be king, to be the sole ruler. That wasn't a bad thing. Geniuses needed all kinds of motivation and passion to get stronger. If everything was peaceful and perfect, a genius would have no drive. It was an iron law of the world that competition was required. This was a rule that no one could change, and so the Vice Sect Master only watched. Whether it was the disciples in the Shintian Sea or the four families' experts, everyone's focus was on Long Chun and Shui Guanji. Although I can't kill you, I can return the humiliation you've given me 1,000 times, said Shui Guanji arrogantly. Then be careful. I Long Chun am not good at fighting. I'm only good at killing. If I accidentally kill you, don't blame me. Long Chun shook his head. Arrogant. I'll let you experience the true power of a rank 2 celestial. A power you can only look up to. Boom! Shui Guanji's runes suddenly blossomed with light as if they had come alive. A terrifying pressure crashed down on the ground, causing space to tremble. The ground beneath Long Chen's feet suddenly cracked. Although Shui Guanji hadn't attacked yet, the aura he had released had already locked onto him. Long Chen was under Shui Guanji's terrifying pressure. Now that Shui Guanji had released his full strength and summoned the cry of the heavenly Daos, this pressure was no weaker than at the edge of the storm zone. However, the storm zone's power was spread throughout a large area, while Shui Guanji's power was completely focused on Long Chen, which was the only reason it could match the storm zone. As expected, a true rank 2 celestial is much more terrifying. That idiot Hua Wufang didn't even have half this power. Battle intent soared out of Long Chen. It had been a long time since he had exchanged blows with a true expert. It would be good to have a fight. Divine Ring. When the Divine Ring appeared, his powerful aura was like a dragon soaring into the sky. The Divine Ring had 3 colors, but on the edge, there was an incredibly indistinct color, one that was practically impossible to see. "What magical art is that?" asked a monastery head. This divine ring possessed a will that could subdue the entire universe. Even heaven and earth would have to lower their heads. Such a technique was something they had never seen or heard of. The most shocking thing was that this divine ring was actually able to resist Shui Guanji's cry of the heavenly Daos. It wasn't like this before. Why are there more colors now? Some people had seen photographic jades of when Long Chen had previously summoned the divine ring. But those images were from when Long Chen had fought in the Jili secret realm. The divine ring had completely transformed, and its new power had reached an inconceivable level. "Long Chen, let me see just how strong you are." Shui Wuhan was full of anticipation. Although she had known Long Chen for so long, she was never able to tell what his limit was. When Long Chen summoned the divine ring, Shui Guanji immediately felt a great deal of pressure. That kind of feeling was something he had only sensed when he fought the other rank 2 celestials. Did Long Chen truly possess the power of a rank 2 celestial? "If you keep hesitating, then I'll have to attack first. Be careful. You've bullied my brothers, so I'm actually quite angry. If you don't want to die, bring out your full strength." Boom! The ground beneath him crumbled. Long Chen shot forward, his saber mercilessly slashing down. "I'll make you pay for your arrogance." Shui Guanji was infuriated by Long Chen. His words were a complete insult to him. Even a fellow rank 2 celestial had never dared to say such a thing to him. Water Dragon Twister. Endless runes lit up behind Shui Guanji, forming a huge water dragon that crashed toward Long Chen. Bang! The huge water dragon was directly cut in 2 by Long Chen. Long Chen found it odd how easily he destroyed it, but then his heart clenched and he hastily swung his saber behind him. 2 water dragons had silently appeared behind Long Chen. They were slashed apart by his saber. What? Long Chen was startled to see that the 2 water dragons had now become 4. Recalling how he had previously cut Shui Guanji's attack in 2, he realized he hadn't destroyed his attack. His slashes weren't destroying his attack, but multiplying it. Now 2 had turned into 4. Furthermore, he found that these dragons had actually absorbed some of his power. It was extremely strange. The 4 water dragons once more came charging at him. With another slash of his saber, the 4 turned into 8. Everyone was shocked speechless. This was the first time most of these disciples were seeing Shui Guanji's fighting style. Such a strange technique was truly shocking. The more you killed, the more appeared. Wouldn't you be exhausted to death by the end? My water runes are my core runes. When I awakened as a rank 2 celestial, they all transformed into heavenly Dao runes. Each time you attack, my water runes will absorb a portion of your strength and condense new water dragons. Your defeat is inevitable, sneered Shui Guanji from a distance. In the storm zone, Zhao Wuji, Zhong Wuyan, and Yu Qianshan all had disgusted expressions as they looked at the multiplying water dragons. This was precisely one of the reasons they didn't like fighting Shui Guanji. His techniques were truly too irritating. He didn't face people head-on. instead releasing endless water dragons to attack people. If you destroyed the water dragons, that would cause your spiritual yuan to leak and be absorbed by the water dragons, forming more water dragons. You would essentially be attacking yourself. But if you didn't destroy them, then it would turn into a battle of attrition. With Shui Guanji's vast spiritual yuan, no one could beat him in that regard. Out of the three, only Yu Qianshan had almost managed to beat Shui Guanji. He had immediately launched one of his ultimate moves at the start of the battle, instantly breaking through Shui Guanji's blockade to arrive in front of him. But the result was regretful. Shui Guanji had used a defensive secret art to block him. Although he had been injured, it hadn't been a heavy injury. After that, Yu Qianshan hadn't had an opportunity to approach him again. It had turned into a battle of attrition, and in the end, it was impossible to determine the winner. Furthermore, he had only had that one chance. After that, Shui Guanji was on guard against him and didn't give him any opportunity. More and more water dragons were appearing around Long Chun. Each one was 300 meters long. Now, there were actually thousands of water dragons, and Long Chun was surrounded. He was like a small boat floating on an angry sea. He might collapse at any moment. Long Chun's defeat is inevitable, sighed some monastery heads. No matter who was attacked with such an irritating attack, they would probably be stifled to the point of going crazy. Shui Guanji's water magical arts are practically unrivaled, praised others. Shui Wuhan was watching curiously. Long Chun seemed to be going all out against the countless water dragons surrounding him. She was curious as to why he was still attacking them. With his vast battle experience, he clearly should have seen through some clues. How could there be any unrivaled magical arts in this world? The Vice Sect Master wore a faint smile as he calmly watched. He couldn't help but sigh. Perhaps he was the only one present who understood what Long Chun was thinking. Heavens, what's going on? You can't even see Long Chun anymore. He's been buried by tens of thousands of water dragons. The disciples in the current couldn't help being appalled by the countless water dragons. Long Chun and Shui Guanji had distanced themselves from the others. The only thing they could see was water chi and huge dragons surging. Previously, they had still been able to see Long Chun faintly through the water. But now they couldn't see him at all. If this continues, Long Chun will directly exhaust himself to death. How foolish, said Zhong Wuyan coldly. Zhao Wuji said, hopefully Shui Guanji won't torment him too badly, or I won't have anything to play with. I want to personally crush him and snatch his 2 women. With your face, no woman would take a fancy to you. Save yourself the effort. Suddenly, Yu Qianshan, who hadn't said a thing up to this point, opened his mouth. But his words were like a blade stabbing toward Zhao Wuji. Bastard, you want to die? If you're not convinced, let's fight right now, raged Zhao Wuji. His aura soared and he took a battle posture. Seeing Long Chun and Shui Guanji fighting, he had long since started to get itchy for a fight. I'm not so bored. If you want to fight, there will be a chance in the future, replied Yu Qianshan coldly. Then he no longer bothered with Zhao Wuji. He absorbed the storm zone's energy as he watched the distant battle. Most people didn't think Long Chun had any chance of winning anymore. But the Dragonblood warriors were an exception. They didn't believe there was anyone in the same realm that could defeat Long Chun. Not even a rank 2 celestial. Ha 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 ha. Long Chun, you won't even be able to continue for a few hours before exhausting yourself like this, laughed Shui Guanji. Explode. Suddenly, over 10,000 water dragons exploded. A figure shot through the water, his saber landing on an astonished Shui Guanji. Shui Guanji's body was cleanly cut in 2 by Long Chun. Everyone let out startled cries. Shui Guanji had been killed? The Shui family's experts all stood up. Shui Yunsong's killing intent erupted. "Sit down," ordered the vice sect master. Suddenly, people heard a faint sound in the distance. They hastily looked over to see Shui Guanji's body explode. But the only thing coming out was water. There was no blood. A water clone? Everyone was shocked. They hastily looked around, finding Shui Guanji up in the air. His expression was exceedingly ugly. If he hadn't used his water clone just now, he would have been killed. This was his first time being forced to use his water clone. This clone was not a spiritual clone, nor was it a true clone. It was simply a clone he had condensed with his runic energy. This clone could only exist within the domain of his runes. He would normally keep it hidden in his domain, and at a critical moment he could instantly switch places with it. This was one of his secret abilities. But now it had been exposed by Longchen. That made him extremely furious. "How did you do this?" demanded Shui Guanji. Longchen flung the water off his saber. "I'm not your father. Why should I tell you?" "You!" Shui Guanji almost exploded from rage. Long Chen's strongest point was his ability to enrage his opponents to death. But it wasn't as if his words were wrong. Why would he have to tell Shui Guanji? Wouldn't that just make it so he could defend against it in the future? Was he stupid? "I understand. You were intentionally allowing the water dragons to absorb your spiritual yuan so that more would appear. Then, when they blocked my sight, you used a secret technique to detonate the spiritual yuan that belonged to you in the water dragons, and then took that chance to launch a sneak attack," said Shui Guanji. Everyone thought about it. It seemed Longchen truly had intentionally allowed the water dragons to absorb his spiritual yuan, or their numbers wouldn't have increased so quickly. But how had Longchen done this? All the experts, including Zhao Wuji and the others, didn't understand. The people who had exchanged blows with Shui Guanji all knew that as long as their spiritual yuan was absorbed by his attack, they would lose any connection to that spiritual yuan. They wouldn't even be able to sense it anymore. They didn't know that when Longchen had his divine ring out, he could still feel his spiritual yuan. Even when it had been absorbed by the water dragons, it had its own specific marking. Previously, Longchen had allowed the water dragons to absorb his spiritual yuan. Shui Guanji's water dragons truly were bizarre, and they did isolate his spiritual yuan from his control. But with his divine ring, he could clearly sense his energy in the water dragons, and when his saber touched that energy, he could detonate it. Even now, Longchen didn't completely understand the divine ring's abilities. All he knew was that it could allow his aura to explosively grow and absorb energy for him. Now, he had found another ability. But this ability didn't seem to have any purpose outside of handling Shui Guanji's water dragons now. "I also required you to work together with me. If you weren't so arrogant, you would have immediately reacted when your water runes exploded and immediately dodged. Now you should believe me, right? Bring out your full power or you'll die," said Longchen indifferently. Hearing their words, everyone couldn't help being alarmed inside. Just what kind of monster was Longchen? He managed to see through the openings of any magical art in the shortest period. It had to be known that Shui Guanji had fought with countless people, and they had all been completely helpless against his multiplying water dragons. It was completely unexpected for Longchen to be able to break this technique. The ones who were most shocked were naturally Zhao Wuji, Zhong Wuyan, and Yu Chenshan. They had always found themselves restrained by his magical arts, so they knew just how difficult Shui Guanji was to deal with. However, his magical arts might be useful against others, but now they were useless against Longchen. Shui Guanji was completely infuriated by this unexpected outcome. Shui Yunsong's expression was ugly. He also felt a bit regretful. If he had known Longchen was this powerful, he wouldn't have told Shui Guanji to suppress Longchen. If his Shui family could have two such powerful geniuses, then they would definitely become the champion of the four families. But now, he felt extremely uneasy. "Did you think that I only have this little ability? Did you think your little flukes can defeat me? A bumpkin really is a bumpkin. I'll let you experience my true abilities." Skywater Prison. The water runes surrounding Shui Guanji all scattered, instantly covering an area of dozens of miles. Longchen found himself trapped within a huge water prison. It was like a huge birdcage. Because it had come so fast and its scope was so big, he hadn't had any opportunity to run. This water cage was formed entirely of runes. These were Shui Guanji's core runes. They were like water but not truly water. Their strength caused the void to twist. Looking from the outside, Longchen seemed like a bird caught in a cage. There was nowhere for him to run. "Ha ha ha, Longchen. Let's see how you run now," Shui Guanji sneered, and his hand seal suddenly changed. The prison began to rapidly shrink. As it shrank, heaven and earth rumbled. What kind of power is this? How could it be so terrifying? No one had expected this water prison to cause such intense rumbling. It was like heaven and earth were unable to bear its power. Long Chen's expression finally changed. He found that as the prison shrank, the pressure around him multiplied. It felt like the world around him was being compressed. When it was compressed to the point of just a few miles, Long Chen felt like a huge mountain was crashing onto him from every direction. He had no choice but to resist with his full strength. By the time the prison reached a width of 300 meters, Long Chen estimated that the pressure could easily crush a rank 1 celestial. The pressure continued to increase as it shrank. Even Long Chen's physical body was starting to become unable to bear it. Long Chen, now that you're a bird caught in a cage, you should understand the difference between us. You'll never be able to make up for that gap. If you kneel and beg me, if you say you're a bumpkin, I will release you. Otherwise, even if I can't kill you, I can crush you into a completely deformed state now, said Shui Guanji. You're a bumpkin? That's all I have to say? Said Long Chen suddenly. Yes. Shui Guanji thought he was conceding, and he sneered with disdain. All right, I've said it and you've also promised, said Long Chen. Shui Guanji immediately understood that he was cursing him, and he had actually fallen for it. Fuck off. Shui Guanji furiously compressed the prison. He truly wanted to kill Long Chen now. Long Chen is completely suppressed. This water prison looks so terrifying. It's unexpected that Shui Guanji actually had such an ability, said Yu Qinshan. When they had exchanged blows with Shui Guanji, he had always used the water dragons to handle them. He had never faced them head-on. So in truth, his scheming ability was profound. He had held back all his powerful techniques. If it hadn't been for Long Chen, they wouldn't have known that Shui Guanji had such terrifying abilities. The water prison took only a moment to appear, and its scope was so great. If it was in a close-range battle, it really was impossible to defend against. The three of them all felt apprehensive. They didn't look favorably on Long Chen's odds. Since Shui Guanji had abandoned his defense and placed all his core runes into this water prison, it meant that this was his strongest offensive ability. Suddenly, an explosive sound rang out. Long Chen's shoulder shattered. He was finally unable to bear that pressure. Truly worthy of being a rank 2 celestial. This combat ability is truly shocking. It seems I've underestimated you, said Long Chen lightly as he looked at the blood on his shoulder. You still want to act calm? I want to see just how long you can keep that up. You'll quickly be crushed into a lump, said Shui Guanji through clenched teeth. Although he had imprisoned Long Chen, Shui Guanji was still infuriated. His strategy had always been to never reveal his true strength in front of others. But this Skywater prison was his strongest killing technique. He had once used this technique to bring down a rank 2 celestial from the corrupt path. Long Chen had far surpassed the amount of time that rank 2 celestial had lasted, and he had only just been injured. Just how terrifying was his physical body. A cold light suddenly appeared in his eyes. He definitely couldn't leave such a person alive. He decided to secretly concentrate all his power and instantly kill Long Chen. Even if he did kill Long Chen, although it would displease the vice sect master, he could say that Long Chen refused to admit defeat as an excuse. His death was just an accident. At most, he would receive some punishment. You want to kill me? Said Long Chen suddenly. He smiled. He finally sensed that Shui Guanji had unleashed his killing intent. 3-star battle armor. 3 stars appeared in Long Chen's eyes. The primal chaos bead, which had been rapidly circulating, suddenly became still. A vast sea of energy poured out of the primal chaos space. It was like explosives had been ignited in his body. A terrifying aura erupted and a will to decimate the 9 heavens soared into the sky. What? Everyone was horrified. Long Chen actually still had a trump card, and such a terrifying one. Everyone felt a burst of terror when Long Chen's aura erupted. It was like the revival of a devil god. In front of that will, they seemed so minute. The water cage was like a balloon. It went from 50 meters to 30 miles, and it was still inflating. Boom! The terrifying water cage directly exploded from Long Chen's aura. Everyone's jaws dropped. Do you still have any other techniques? If not, I'll be attacking. But Long Chen had already charged directly at a horrified Shui Guanji. Shui Guanji awakened from his shock and quickly summoned back his runes. They formed a shield in front of him. Bang! That incomparably tough runic shield instantly exploded. Shui Guanji vomited blood and flew back. Even the late sea expansion experts watching had to gulp. They were all shocked by Long Chen's combat ability. It had to be known that Shui Guanji's water shield was shockingly tough and supple. Other people's attacks were unable to bring out any force against him. But now it had instantly exploded. That meant Long Chen's current strength had reached a level that surpassed their imaginations. Is Long Chen a demon? Wondered a monastery head. All the monastery heads were shaken. This kind of combat ability was inconceivable. The vice sect master simply watched calmly. His gaze went from the divine ring to Long Chen's gaze. He didn't say anything, as even he had never seen this kind of magical art. It had already surpassed the scope of his understanding. Long Chen had to have huge secrets. He couldn't help but sigh. Everything Long Chen had was obtained through risking his life. Perhaps only such a brave warrior would be given the heaven's blessing. All great opportunities were left to the brave. It was unfortunate he didn't know that Long Chen didn't feel the slightest gratefulness toward the heavens. It was the 9-star hegemon body art that had given him everything he had. Shui Guanji had borrowed Long Chen's attack to fall back. Seeing him miserably falling back, even the other 3 heavenly geniuses were shocked. Zhong Wuyan covered her mouth, filled with disbelief. They had all been tricked by Long Chen. Or perhaps it was better to say they had been tricked by Long Chen's slovenliness. They had been misled by how he didn't have any of the air of an expert. Every genius, even rank 1 celestials, would all possess an arrogant air and domineeringness. But Long Chen didn't possess that. He seemed just like an ordinary disciple. And so no one could tell he was truly a match for the 4 heavenly geniuses. Ha ha ha. Boss really is the boss. Guoran and the others were all in the red zone watching Long Chen worshipfully. Boom! Countless water runes once more condensed around Shui Guanji, shocking everyone. He truly was worthy of being one of the 4 heavenly geniuses. He was capable of releasing consecutive ultimate moves, and there was no sign of his spiritual yuan running out. The disciples all had to acknowledge the 4 heavenly geniuses. They were all practically monsters, unable to be judged through common sense. Seal the heavens, lock the earth. Rumbling filled the air, and blood began to drip from Shui Guanji's forehead. This fresh blood formed 2 different runes on his forehead. They corresponded to his 2 heavenly Dao runes. In that instant, all the runes around him became scarlet. They formed 3 translucent barriers around him. Long Chen, as a water cultivator, offense is my weak point. Now I've brought forth my strongest defense. If you have the guts, just try and break it, provoked Shui Guanji. Are you stupid? You're hiding in your turtle shell, and you want me to break it? Why would I waste the energy? I'll just wait right here. Let me see just how long you can maintain this turtle shell. Long Chen naturally wasn't so stupid. Furthermore, even before he touched these 3 barriers, just summoning them had made Shui Guanji pay a large price. Just from that, he knew this was his strongest technique. This kind of magical art might have a shocking defense, but the exhaustion rate was also tremendous. There was no way he could maintain it for long. On the other hand, Long Chen had the divine ring giving him a constant stream of energy. Shui Guanji was infuriated. He snorted, "If you don't, then I'll force out every single one of you from the Shentian Sea." Countless expressions changed. Even Shui Yunsong's expression became ugly. This child had been pampered rotten. At this moment, he didn't care the slightest bit about principles. He had made this threat twice now. He had completely lost the mannerism a large sex disciple should possess. "All right, since you want to die, I can only help you out. Long Chen's gaze seemed like two sharp blades. He slowly raised his saber, and a majestic aura slowly rose. These movements are... The vice sect master was shocked. It split the heavens, said Shui Wuhan. What? How can Long Chen use the heaven-splitting divine sect's sacred ability? Cried the Wang family head. There's nothing curious about it. In the Phoenix Cry Empire, Long Chen found the first form of split the heavens, and then in the Jili secret realm, he killed one of the heaven-splitting divine sect's disciples. Thanks to some people sending this news to the heaven-splitting divine sect, one of their people came to give him permission. Who would have thought, right? What do you say, family head Zhou? Shui Wuhan glanced at Zhou Tiany's bald head. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Zhou Tiany's expression didn't even twitch. Oh, there was such a thing? And the heaven-splitting divine sect's people didn't take back Long Chen's battle skill? How? The vice sect master found this inconceivable. According to the heaven-splitting divine sect's crazy and unreasonable domineeringness, they definitely wouldn't be so kind-hearted. That person didn't make things hard on Long Chen. He actually gave Long Chen some benefits. Shui Wuhan smiled. Benefits? How is that possible? Cried a monastery head. Because Long Chen gave him a slap in the face, he gave Long Chen some benefits. I'm also not clear on the exact details. Shui Wuhan shook her head. Thinking of that person from the heaven-splitting divine sect, she couldn't help finding it funny. She really was unable to understand his way of thinking. People wanted to continue asking her questions, but in the end, they shut their mouths and focused on watching Long Chen. His aura was still growing. Even if Long Chen has learned split the heavens, so what? Guanji's defense is unrivaled. No one within the same realm can break it, said Shui Yunsong. He was clearly uncomfortable with how Long Chen was. As the family head, he had made this strategy which had caused a genius to be treated as a random weed. That was equivalent to saying he had no vision. If Long Chen defeated Shui Guanji, he really would have no face left. So in his heart, he still hoped for Shui Guanji to suppress Long Chen. Only then would it prove that he had made the right choice. If a leader couldn't even properly appraise people, then they really should step down. Long Chen's saber was currently pointed toward the sky. An immense saber image slowly condensed. Split the heavens. The huge saber image suddenly slashed down on Shui Guanji's water barrier. The barrier shook 3 times, but it didn't break. Furthermore, there were 3 runic barriers. Long Chen's attack hadn't even broken the outer layer. This is the famous split the heavens? The experts looked at each other in dismay. It seemed this was a far cry from the power rumored in legends. Humph, it was just a bluff, sneered Shui Yunsong. Buzz. Just as his sneer rang out, Long Chen once more raised his saber to the sky. An even larger saber image pierced through the clouds. What? When they saw that saber image, the monastery heads all shot up, filled with shock. They found out that Long Chen's previous attack had just been a practice blow. The first attack had shaken heaven and earth's natural energy. But the second attack had absorbed all the energy in the air. In that instant, the entire world trembled with a murderous aura. Even from a distance, it was like this saber image had locked them down. It was incomparably terrifying. This should be the second form of split the heavens. Shui Wuhan was also filled with shock as she watched. But she could guess what this move was. Shui Guanji was tightly locked down by a fierce sensation of death. He felt a chill throughout his whole body. Bastard! You won't be able to break my defense! He roared furiously and suddenly punched himself in the chest. He vomited blood, directly using his essence blood to form a seal. The barriers around him brightened. Long Chen ignored his actions. He was completely focused on comprehending the will of split the heavens. Although it wasn't his first time using it, this time, he felt a kind of will that could break apart any and all restrictions, including heaven and earth. It actually greatly resembled his own will. He was currently trying to align his will with the essence of split the heavens. Rumbling suddenly filled the air, and astral winds raged. A power was bursting forth like an erupting volcano. Long Chen suddenly felt all his energy get sucked dry. He couldn't help being startled. His tremendous spiritual yuan still wasn't enough to completely satisfy Split the Heavens. Furthermore, he found that his attack had already reached the point of an arrow flying off a bow. He had no choice but to follow through with it. It wasn't under his control anymore. The huge saber image was like a bolt of lightning splitting apart heaven and earth, like a heavenly blade cutting apart the river of stars. It slashed down directly at Shui Guanji. Boom! When it landed on his first layer of defenses, that water barrier instantly exploded. It continued to the second. The second barrier didn't even last for a breath, and it also exploded. Shui Guanji's face turned as pale as paper. With a furious roar, Shui Guanji poured all his spiritual yuan into his final barrier. If he still couldn't block it, he would die. Boom! The saber image landed on the third barrier. The ground fiercely trembled, and even the disciples in the Shen Sea were blown into the air. As a result, they were blown into the distance by the current. Some were even blown directly to the edge. This attack was too terrifying. It was lucky that this was a special place, or Long Chen's attack might have completely destroyed this land. When the dust scattered, people were horrified to see the ground had become covered in cracks. Long Chen was leaning on his saber, gasping for breath. Shui Guanji had disappeared from his original location, and a long ditch had appeared there. Shui Guanji was lying at the end of that ditch, constantly coughing up blood. What? Shui Guanji was defeated. Dragging his saber, Long Chen slowly walked over to Shui Guanji. His steps were a bit unsteady, but his imposingness shook people's hearts. When he arrived in front of him, Long Chen icily looked at the pale Shui Guanji. Do you know? If you had just targeted me, this little competition would have ended here. Regretfully, you despicably sneak-attacked my brothers. What are you planning? You won't dare to kill me, said Shui Guanji icily. Long Chen smiled. In this world, there's nothing I don't dare to do. It's just that you haven't touched my bottom line yet, so I won't kill you. Suddenly, Long Chen's saber directly pierced through Shui Guanji's chest. His blood splashed, shocking everyone. Long Chen, you're courting death, Shui Yunsong roared furiously. Long Chen's actions caused everyone to jump in fright. Was he really planning on killing someone here? Did he not want his life? Long Chen didn't even glance at Shui Yunsong. He indifferently looked at Shui Guanji. This is for my brothers. Remember, next time you do something like this, then even if you have a god as a backer, I swear I will kill you. He flung his saber, sending Shui Guanji flying. He miserably tumbled, wildly vomiting blood. Without a second glance, Long Chen began walking back toward the Shen Sea. Everyone was deeply shaken by this. It was like they were watching a merciless devil god walking toward them. He was actually so powerful. All of a sudden, the saber Long Chen was resting on his shoulder shattered. It was unable to endure the power from the second form of Split the Heavens. Damn it. Can't you wait until after I finish showing off? Long Chen sighed helplessly. He flung away the hilt and went directly into the Shen Sea. He felt his exhausted spiritual yuan rapidly recovering in the Shen Sea. It was even faster than recovering with medicinal pills. Vice Sect Master. Long Chen went too far this time dash. Shui Yunsong stood and bowed. The Vice Sect Master waved his hand. All things have their reasons. If you want to play, then you have to be able to accept losing. If Long Chen had been defeated, what would have happened? Would you have felt that to be too far? Do you feel that because Shui Guanji is your family's disciple, defeating him is going too far? Just at this moment, Zhou Tianyi interjected. Family head Shui. Being so biased toward one person isn't good. Aren't you afraid of your other disciples growing disillusioned? I'm just judging the matter as it stands, aren't I? Shui Yunsong's mind was a bit chaotic now. It was not the time to fight, so he directly shut his mouth. Nice job, boss. When Long Chen passed by the Dragonblood Legion, Guoran and the others all looked at him worshipfully. Deciding to follow Long Chen had truly been the best decision of their lives. Long Chun smiled at them and continued forward. Winking at Meng Qi and Tang Wan he went straight toward the storm zone. The pressure was the greatest there, but his recovery speed would also be the fastest there. Once he was in the violet zone, he didn't continue forward. He just relied on the current's practically limitless energy to recover his spiritual yuan. At this time, the heavily injured Shui Guanji stood up and walked back to the Xintian Sea. Long Chun had merely stabbed him, and that attack hadn't contained any other forces. So while his injury had appeared frightening, it hadn't been at all fatal. That was especially true since he was a water cultivator, and his natural recovery ability was greater than others. Shui Guanji also entered the violet zone. This time, Long Chun didn't stop him. A gentleman should be magnanimous and clearly understand enmities. He had already gotten his revenge for his brothers. Long Chun, I won't let things off just like this. We still have a long time to play, snorted Shui Guanji when he detoured around Long Chun.